Technology. It's great. When it works. Well, I'm sorry we're 4 minutes late. I know time's valuable. I'm Mayor Sykes, and thank you guys for coming tonight. The neat thing is I think we're almost there. I geek out with this kind of stuff. Why are we doing this? I guess, and where are we going, and how do we get to where we at right now? And I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. It started about 3 years ago. I met Bruce Patterson down in Ammon. There was a lot of what do you call them? A lot of other mayors are like, hey, you got to get down to Ammon and see what they're doing. And I was like, I'm too busy. I want to do something else. So I literally drove down there with my street superintendent, thinking, well, maybe it's something we put in the streets. Really had no clue about it. Went down there, drove down there, was blown away. I was blown away by what Ammon was able to do with bringing in business just with their fiber utility. They were able to bring the whole left side or the whole right side. If you go down, was it 25, road 25 or something? You look at it, all of this is businesses because they had broadband and internet services. And so we were very, obviously Mountain Home 3 years ago, or actually, 6 years ago, we were still trying to bring in business like that. So we're like, well, if we can mimic that, do that, maybe that'll help us with it. Never in a million years did I ever think about homes until I went down there and saw it. And then obviously after COVID, we learned a lesson that internet, high-speed internet is it's a essential service. So with the help of the council, we were able to go out for judicial confirmation. And what that allows us to do now is actually provide the citizens their own internet connectivity, if you're right. So I'm going to let Bruce talk about a little bit about that. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. But the neat thing is after COVID hit, we sat here going, oh my gosh, what do we do? And for us as a city, we would hit the circly wheelie of death of not being able to provide the speeds. We started to get to our wells. That was our main focus at the beginning, is getting to all of our wells, getting all to our water tanks. The city of Mountain Home uses a radio read for all your water, all your water bills and stuff. That's how we do it, radio read. It's a 10-minute delay. So imagine having 1,200 gallons pumped out of a well for 10 minutes until it sends a signal to the on-call guy to go check it if there's something stuck. We live in a high plain desert, and 1,200 gallons a minute is a lot of water to be wasted. So the city of Mountain Home said, you know what, we need to have double redundancy, not only double redundancy, but quick internet connectivity to every well and water tank. So we have that, so hopefully it gives us a better than 10-minute, it's an instantaneous read for the city of Mountain Home. Why are we trying to follow Ammon, Idaho's model? Well, first, I think Ammon is probably second in the world of connectivity of cost. And if you want to see a slide, I have all that slide, but we're going to put that on later down the road. But what they've been able to do is give it's a really good price for everybody, and that's what we believe in. My frustration, this is one of the biggest reasons why I push this project, is I pay $90 plus a month for a gig of service. I did a speed test yesterday and the day before. A gig is 1,000 megabits up. Hopefully you get 1,000 megabits up, down, right? I get 22 download, 12 upload, and other times I'm usually about 12 and 5. Well, when I have all my kids on there on their laptops for school, I have the circular wheel of death when I try to watch a show or Netflix or whatever. I do telework at home as well. So does my wife. And when their kids are on there, we can't do it. It's not right. I call it the pineapple effect. It's just my analogy towards the internet ISPs. I go to Albertsons, I buy a pineapple, full price. I get home, I have 1/16 of my pineapple. I paid full price for it. Why am I not getting the full price? That's not right. Or it'd be like going to Les Schwab buying 4 tires, getting one. You paid for 4, you're only getting one. It's not right. So I'm a huge advocate of where we're trying to get this utility in Mountain Home. I'm a huge advocate for the businesses, telework, telehealth, telemed, everything. I was out the Air Force Base, and right now some of the Air Force members, they have some mental issues that they can't get to where they need to go, and they do it through telemedicine. And they're able to get to their doctor. They don't have to have that stigma. And that's just one of the another great things about what we're trying to do with the city of Mountain Home. With that, I want you guys to know the city of Mountain Home doesn't want to be an ISP provider. All we want, just like your water and your wastewater, that you guys own. You guys own your water and your wastewater. We just want to have you guys own the infrastructure that goes in the ground. You guys own that, and then we'll be the freeway. You guys, all of us, will be the freeway, and all the other ISPs will be the on-ramp to the world. And then you will deal with the ISPs. If you have a cut issue or whatever, instead of calling your ISP, well, obviously Bruce will get into this a little bit more, but the neat thing is you can call City Hall. You pay your bill at City Hall for your O&M, your LID if you so choose to do it, but you'll pay your ISPs directly. And if there's an issue with your ISP, and if you so choose to, you can switch an ISP in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, Bruce. But we want to give you so many tools that you guys have the greatest customer experience as well. So with that, I guess another thing with customer service is it's just like your water, your wastewater guy. You have a water line break, you call City Hall, we come out there, and we'll be out there hopefully within 15, 20 minutes, hopefully sooner, to fix that. Just like if someone cuts the line, we have a double redundancy backup. It'll come from the west, it'll come from the east, so hopefully on our end, you won't be down. But with that, I always joke with Bruce Patterson. He's our consultant with Entry Point. And when I say this jokingly, he was like the godfather of fiber for Ammon, Idaho. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to him. I encourage everybody to ask as many questions to this man. He knows hopefully every answer that you ever want to know. But the guy's a wealth of knowledge. He's walked us through baby steps. And last thing but not least, the judicial confirmation. What that does, it allows the city of Mountain Home to go out and do this project for you. And like I said, I'll let him talk about it. With that, I'm going to let Bruce go, and I will sit down and shut up.
So I'm pretty happy to be in front of you tonight. That for me personally, this is a bit of a milestone. This is the first location where what was created in Ammon, Idaho is duplicated. So we feel successful with that. Tonight we're able to announce that we have ISPs and we have package pricing that will be available on the city system. We know what those pricings are and we can show them to you tonight. The vast majority of them are working. There are a couple of network upgrades that we're waiting for on the backhaul providers, but everything's functioning today and things are looking bright. So I'll kind of state that up front. What I would start with, first of all, is I would get you to think a little bit more about the broader perspective. You're here because you're focused on Mountain Home. 2 years ago, we crossed the threshold. So we have literally millions of homes that are unconnected. Now, the vast majority of those used to be in the rural areas. Today, 60% of the homes that are disconnected are in the large metro areas, and it's because they cannot afford the connection. So we're talking Los Angeles, we're talking Detroit, we're talking New York. We're talking areas where 30% of the people in some of these places cannot afford an internet connection. And we're talking about they can't afford a cell phone, they can't afford a cable connection. We know a second thing. 30% of those kids have lost one parent to the pandemic, and they haven't been to school for 18 months. How do we fix that? Now, I mention that because those are the areas that we're currently working in the hardest, because there's a growing consensus that we have to start to treat the internet infrastructure as a utility. We're not talking about the service. We're talking about the wire. What the judicial confirmation give Mountain Home permission to do was to build the wire, not to offer the service. In fact, that confirmation basically prohibits them from actually giving service. So think of it this way. Mountain Home can build the road, but they cannot be UPS or FedEx. Somebody else has to use that road to deliver the package. Now, the reason that's significant is because you think about how you get wireline internet, the most expensive piece is building the wire. Private companies that build the wire require a 5 to 8 year return on that investment. When we build sewer and water systems, those are 20 to 30 year returns on investment at interest rates that are probably half. So you have to think about that for a minute. If we apply those public models to the infrastructure, we can take the highest piece that you're paying monthly and shrink it. That's how Ammon successfully did it. And we actually asked the residents to pay for their own connection, just like you pay for your own sewer and water. Now, you don't know that because most of you buy a home and it was already paid for. But when a new home gets built, the developer puts the main line in, your builder runs the line from the street to the home, and when you buy the home, that investment is paid for. All those lines in the road are paid for because you bought it with the price of your lot. You don't pay for it again, you just pay to maintain and operate it. So Mountain Home has to walk through a very narrow path to get where they want to go. New development, they can get the developer to pay for the lines and they will be put in and there from the day the people move in. And they will just pay for a monthly maintenance and operation fee, and they will pay an internet service provider to get to the internet. People that have existing homes will have to participate in an improvement, which means you will have to pay for your fiber. The path that is open to Mountain Home is an improvement district. That's what they got legal permission to do. That's where the city creates a boundary and asks the homeowners who wants fiber built to their home. You've seen them talk about that. It's optional. The amount it costs to connect your home varies depending on how many people sign up. So what Mountain Home has tried to do is get at least half of the people in certain areas to sign up because that makes it affordable. Let me clarify that a little bit. Make sure you understand. If Mountain Home builds fiber into 100 homes and only 10 of them connect, it's going to cost $10,000 a home. But if they can get 500 homes to connect, the price goes down. Does that make sense to everybody? So what they've done is try to make sure that they have that interest level out of you residents. They now have some areas where they have that level and they feel that it's affordable. There's a second thing in play. We are seeing unprecedented amounts of federal funding available to counties and cities and states to build broadband infrastructure. Now folks, that's public money. So let me tell you what the cities and county across this country, what they're wrestling with right now. What do we do with this? We don't own broadband infrastructure. We've never built broadband infrastructure. So for many of them, it's easier to give that money directly to the local cable company or phone company. They are giving that money sometimes to those providers with no contractual arrangement that guarantees how many homes will get connected, what price they will pay, or anything. Because it's too big of a problem and they don't understand what to do because they've never been asked to own the problem. The city has never been asked in many places to own the broadband problem. But I promise you, I know this for a fact. Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, Los Angeles, they're all going to take ownership. They're all going to take that money and they're going to build city-owned infrastructure because it's the only way they can serve the poor in their areas. We cannot afford to just kick out subsidies to the poor to connect to the internet. We have to get a long-term solution, which means we need to push the price down. And the way to push the price down is create a true public utility for the capital cost, for the infrastructure, not for the service. These folks here will tell you the service is complicated, but it is not the most expensive part of the project. What they do is absolutely critical and important, and it's the harder part. The cities are actually pretty good at putting things in the ground and maintaining it. They already have backhoes. They already know how to do that. So that's what Mountain Home has done. They've separated the infrastructure from the service. And they've done that in the way that you get billed, and they've done that in who you call when you need help. So that's what the mayor was alluding to. A lot of these things will be made clear for those of you that want to join it, and I'm here to answer those questions. So with that, I think, the LID boundaries are up. Do you want them to see the marketplace?
Yep. So this was the highest take rate, and this was the highest amount of pinned locations in a group setting. So we had all this. Where's Mike? Mike Luan. He's our fiber administrator. This is as many, all the little pins. If you get them all grouped together, obviously the cost per home is going to go down because the infrastructure is all right next to each other. Am I wrong? Okay. So Mike, you want to give a quick synopsis on this?
Sure.
And then we'll jump to yours. And I'll come off and you jump on.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Like Mayor said, my name's Mike. I'm the fiber optic administrative assistant. And over the past few months, I've talked to many of you who have been great supporters of this. So I appreciate you all being here tonight. And so this first LID, it's right around the corner. The city is planning on starting connections as early as this coming spring. And it includes 733 homes. Out of those 733 homes, that includes 4 different areas throughout the city. And each area is up here on the map. The first one is Bel Air. That subdivision includes 163 homes. They've got 78 opt-ins so far, and they're currently at a 48% opt-in rate. So looking really good in that area, and they only need 4 more signups to get to 50%. And some of you may be wondering, like, well, how do these percentages correlate to me as a homeowner? So, like Bruce was saying, the higher the percentage, the less expensive it's going to be for you. But also, as we start the connections, we are going to be starting in areas that are currently unserved to help get those connections out to people who don't have any capability. And then from there, we're going to utilize the opt-in rate. So the areas that have higher opt-in rates, we will start the connections there first, because that's going to be the most efficient way to get the connections done in a cost-effective manner. And also, it will give the other boundaries time to get additional signups before we get into that neighborhood to help even bring that cost down more. So the second area is the Stormy Mountain subdivision. They have 157 homes, 71 signups so far, and they're coming in right around 45% opt-in rate. They're only needing 8 more signups to get to that 50% rate. And then our next zone, it's one of the largest ones, is the Silverstone subdivision. They have 270 homes, 117 opt-ins so far, and they're currently sitting right around 43%, only 18 signups away from that 50% mark. And then last but not least, Stone Tree, Silverado, and Northside Estates. Between those 3 subdivisions, there's 143 homes, 52 opt-ins, and 37% sign-up rate, and only 19 more signups. So everything is looking very good when it comes to percentages, and we're very close to getting these connections started. And you know, like I said, this is a great opportunity. We're glad that you guys came out. So this will be a great time to get all of your questions answered. So Mayor, unless you have any other things that you'd like to go over, do you want to go into the Q&A?
I am going to have him jump on here.
Okay. And just so you are aware, by the door in the back there, there are some handouts and some sign-up forms. If you would like to sign up, if you've not already signed up, you can take one of those forms, fill it out, and then drop it in that metal box there.
Hey, Tiff.
Yeah. We can walk you through this.
So the thing is a total opt-in, opt-out. You don't have to take it. So the neat thing about this, he needs to log in.
No, we got it.
That's you.
This is the customer portal. So we're actually going to show you what you get when you get Mountain Home Fiber.
So really quick, what we talked about an opt-in, opt-out of an LED. Even if you sign up and we get to your house and you say, nah, I don't want it, you don't have to take it. You can sign up till the last day the LED is open.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a little caveat on that. Can I give you my personal experience? So I worked at Ammon 17 years. I apologize if I fall into that. I left Ammon in June. The reason I left Ammon is because I just told you there were a lot of cities and counties calling and asking, how do we do what you did? So I left. I consult with other cities now. I'm under contract with 28 currently. That gives you an idea what my life is like right now. Today we did our first install in Mountain Home. So Mountain Home actually has a residential customer on a pilot home today.
So when we talk about the opt-in, opt-out LID, so let's say this fine gentleman says, I want it. This fine gentleman says, I don't want it. And this fine gentleman says, I don't want it either, but I want it. So these 2 gentlemen don't want it, and they all have exactly the same exact home. Same square footage, same everything. This gentleman and this gentleman's home will be worth 3% more when you go to resell your home. Am I
That's correct. In Ammon, the realtors, so no surprise to you folks, you can't tell which one has fiber or not unless you know what to look for, right? If I drive down the street, I know exactly what to look for and I can tell you. Realtors can't tell. We had people buying homes in Ammon and they get really upset because the home didn't have fiber. So you need to understand something. The LID is the process where you get your fiber to the home and you can pay for everything if you want. So you can pay it all at one time, and if you don't want to, the city bonds it and you can pay for it over 20 years at 2 or 3%, okay? So there are people that just bought a home and then they find out, well, both my neighbors have fiber, but this one doesn't have fiber and I thought it did. How do I get fiber? There's no way for the city to amortize it. It's really important for you to understand. Any money that Mountain Home spends on fiber has to be on fiber. They can't take water money and spend it. They can't take your tax dollars and spend it. This whole thing has to stand on its own, which is why they can go get a bond, and the court said they can get a bond. That means basically a loan. It's just like they're going to get a loan for you so you can pay your fiber over time. But if you want to pay for it all up front, you can. So what that meant was these people just bought a brand new home, and City of Ammon said, yeah, we can install it for you, but it's $3,600. And they say, I can't do that. I just put everything I had down on the house. So the realtors threw a fit. The City of Ammon actually publishes a public map that shows every home in Ammon that has fiber so that when somebody buys it, they know whether it has fiber or not. I will tell you, the vast majority of homes that get sold in Ammon that don't have fiber, guess what happens? The buyer has to pay that $3,600 and put it in, and that cost gets rolled into the mortgage. That's what's happening because people will not buy it without fiber. So it does impact the saleability of your home once people start to figure out the difference.
Explain to me what fiber is.
So fiber is a piece of glass that's running a digital signal light through it. But really what it does is once it's paid for, the city charges $16.50 a month to maintain it. That means they charge that to keep the fiber active. They charge it to keep the lights on. Mountain Home's price might be a little bit different. I can't speak to that. That's part of my job is to help them figure that out. But it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of $20 or less. It's going to be somewhere in that range between $15 and $20, I'm going to guess, right? And then the internet service providers will log in and show you what they charge, but you'll be able to see. So you pay your ISP directly, separately. It doesn't get flowed through the city, and you pay the city for maintenance and operation of the fiber on your utility bill. So by law, this is a utility. It means they can't operate it for profit. They can only operate it for cost of recovery. It means they're just covering their costs. So we can show you what the prices in the portal look like. If you get fiber in your home, you go in and you plug into it, you're going to get a username and password. When you sign up and say, I want to start using it, that's when the city starts to charge you that monthly amount on your utility bill. You get a username and password, you can log in. This is the device that would be in your home. That's the fiber port. You can see right now this particular device has a copper cable plugged in here, and then you would plug like your Wi-Fi router into one of these ports. 20% of people in Ammon take two ISPs. They take one ISP here and the second one there. So 20% of the homes in Ammon have both of you on them.
It's a more expensive router though.
Well, you know that they're technically plugging directly into like a work computer with one, and then they're using the other one for their Wi-Fi router and their entertainment. And you're going to say, why would you get two? It's because you're going to see it doesn't cost much to have two. Because you've already paid the city for the fiber, so the city doesn't charge you for getting a second one. That's already covered. So this is the internet marketplace. These are the three providers that are available today. Two of them are here. Sumo is here. They go up to $49.88, but 1 gig, you can see the 1 gig packages.
Well, so the biggest thing for me is this utility is, am I paying for what I'm getting? Now, truth be told, you're never going to get 1,000 and 1,000. But if it's 940 up and 940 down, it's better than my 22 and 12 or 12 and 5 that I'm paying for 1,000 up, 1,000 down.
So then what you would do here is you would pick your package. There are no reviews currently. As people sign up and they review them, there'll actually be a star rating here so you can kind of tell what people think of the provider in the package. You would basically, you can click details to get details about the package, or you would basically click subscribe. So there you go, no data cap, no contract, which means you can change And all you got to do to change is log in here and unsubscribe and subscribe. You don't have to make a phone call. You don't have to do anything. You just log in here to change your ISP. So click subscribe on one of them, Tyler. It'll come up and it'll ask you what port you want it on, because there are 4 customer-facing ports. You saw in the little diagram that was plugged into port 1, so see how it says it's up? That means it knows you've got a wire plugged into port 1. So you choose your port. This one, yeah.
Yeah, I can go back.
And then you get an operator, it's fine. That's an SFP port, so that's a second fiber port. So you could technically actually connect a fiber device to this device in your home if you wanted to. Go ahead and go next. This is your operator disclosure. Basically what it's saying is the city provided the fiber, they provide the marketplace, but they have nothing to do with your ISP service. Billing issues you have with your ISP, that's between you and your ISP. Does that make sense to everybody? The city is not interested in getting involved in that. The marketplace takes care of it yourself. And if you're not happy, change your ISP. Okay, so next, and it'll just ask, are you sure? And then you click subscribe, and it will actually subscribe it. It'll say it's creating it. This is literally how long it takes, and it will power cycle the port on the fiber device so that your router or your computer knows the network changed. And that'll cause your computer or router to ask for a new address, and then you're on their networks getting their internet service. Go back to the dashboard.
Oh, you can see it says subscribe right now.
Yeah, it says right there. So now you would need to unsubscribe to that package. It tells you you're subscribed to it. So if we go back to the dashboard, you can look right here. This is your fiber coming in. This is where you're getting your ISP, and you see now that Sumo is on that port. You can actually test it. There's some tools to test it and see what's working and what isn't working. I'm not going to dive into all those details tonight, okay? Because I really don't think that's the purpose of this conversation. But questions?
Question and answer.
Back to the pricing, that schedule you had up there. I don't think I follow.
That's what you would pay a month for these.
Well, there's like 3 quick nets, and it goes from $10 to
So
$50.
this one's 250 by 250 meg.
Okay.
$9.88. This is their 1 gig crazy fast, $14.88.
Right.
This is their 1 gig at $49.88. Quinn is here. He can talk to you about the differences in those. I will tell you, folks, I don't want to get into the details because that is the ISP's business, okay? So I'm a network guy. I know there's differences in how they do their business. I know that. But it's not my place to pitch you one or the other. The city will be absolutely neutral about this. We learned that early on in Ammon. You guys choose who you want. It doesn't matter to us, okay? If you want to understand the differences, call these folks up and ask them, and then choose the one you want. If you don't like it, all you really have to do is unsubscribe. You're going to owe them for what you used them for. Pick another one and subscribe. I just told you, most people, when they change, they'll choose another one, subscribe, they'll unplug from port 1 and they'll plug into port 2, and they'll try that ISP, and then they'll go back and they'll unsubscribe. You can access this from anywhere on the internet. So you could be at work, get on the internet, and go log into your portal and change your ISP at home from work. You can do it from your smartphone.
Is there any, on the pricing, I'm thinking of the pricing still, because I came to a meeting here a year ago, and it was talked about like a fixed pricing structure for all the ISPs. I thought, what is there to, as far as guarantees to know that the cheapest one won't be $50 a month?
So this is what's available today. These folks have committed to, this is what they're going to offer. Obviously, this is a live market. This is the separation between what it costs to do the internet and what it costs to build the infrastructure. So we do not control that.
So one thing about it though is that we have 3 competitors. So if we raise our pricing and you're not happy with that, you switch to somebody else. So it incentivizes us to keep our pricing low. So we attract you to come to us instead of somebody else. So having more people on that portal is a good thing for you guys.
Think of it like Amazon. Except for I think Amazon does fix some pricing on some of these, I'll say that. The city doesn't. But the city's goal here is to be open and transparent and bring services that you folks would want. This is a nice base starting position. And for the size of your city, can we be frank? 3 ISPs that'll compete like this, there isn't any place in the country you can get this.
Yeah.
There isn't any place in the country.
Except for Ammon.
Except for Amazon.
And not even the adjoining city to Ammon is this competitive. This is really cool.
So when it comes to the final cost of construction, when you're talking about your capital costs, when did you choose to draw your line and say, okay, we've got this many people on this infrastructure, it's going to be 3,600 per home, or okay, we 2 years later from now, we get another 100 or 2,000 people or 5,000, instead of 3,600. Oh, now I'm liable for 2,500. If I ever sell my home, or I want to pay it off, or that sort of thing, or I want to pay it up front. Because as more people get on the system, that cost goes down.
That's correct.
So when do you draw the line and you tell me that, all right, Joseph, and Mike knows where I'm coming from. All right, so it's going to be 3,600 bucks. Okay, it's $3,600. All right, now 6 months from now, hey, wow, I've got another 100 people on there. Well, it shouldn't be 3,600 to me then. It
Right.
should be
Correct.
maybe 3,400 or something, whatever.
Yep.
When did you decide to draw that line? And if you drew that line at that point in time, then later on, if all of a sudden you get people come in and they buy a home, they say, oh, you know what, I want to add that. Okay, I'll include a part of my loan, I'll pay it out of petty cash, pull it out of my savings, whatever they want to do. They bring in and they pay for that. Does that adjust our costs down later on? Because when I looked at that judicial notice or that law under Idaho that allows us to do that, I didn't see anything explicitly that stated that it would bring our costs down that capital cost. So you're going to draw a line somewhere and you're going to say, okay, guys, it's going to be $3,700 that you're going to pay off over 20 years, 30 years, or you pay it up front. So.
Correct. So let me address a couple of things that I think you're touching on, and then I will specifically deal with exactly what I think you're asking, okay? First thing I'm going to tell you is the entire LID process is strictly outlined by law. So when the city starts the LID, they have a public meeting. Everybody that's inside the boundary gets mailed a public notice that says, we're going to have a meeting. We want to know, do you want to create the LID? And it's a legal notice, so the way it reads is, it will say, City of Mountain Home is considering creating an LID in your area to provide a fiber optic improvement. That means install fiber optic. It is an optional LID, meaning nobody's forced to do it. We're going to have a public meeting to find out, does the public want us to do it? You can come into that meeting and you can advocate for it or against it. City council will vote. They're not obligated to vote based on the public comment, meaning they could get a ton of negative comment and still do it, or they could get a bunch of positive comment and do it or not do it. You see what I'm saying? But the city council has to decide. But by law, they have to have the public input. City council gets to decide if that happens. Once it's created, that's when design and engineering starts to go. So technically, the city, anything it does in advance of that, it can't get paid back for. So a lot of that work starts at that point. Now that doesn't mean that we can't do back of the napkin estimates. Everybody with me so far? So we have a pretty good idea going in. And you'll see the public notice will actually talk about, well, actually that's not true. Public notice just gets you to come in. The point is this: once it's formed and the engineering's done, there is another notice that goes out that says, we expect it to cost between this and this per home. So there'll be a range. The last one we did in Ammon, the range was $3,500 to $4,000 a home, and that was based on about a 55–60% take rate. So everything we got over 60%, we expected would bring it down. But now these construction projects run a year. So what do you think COVID does? What do you think market volatility does? Here's the thing I can tell you. You pay exactly what it costs by the time it's done. They aren't allowed to pad it. They're not allowed to take from it. So if it costs them $3,000 and 3 homes connect, by law, each home pays $1,000 because it was $3,000. You divide it equally. Does that make sense? So whatever we finish at, everybody pays the same. Now the question you're asking me is, Somebody that didn't hook up now hooks up later. What do they have to pay, and where does that money go, and does it reduce your cost after the LID closes? Am I understanding your question?
Yeah, kind of, but then where's the line when the LID closes and it says, okay, now I've got 3 houses or I've got 3,000?
The LID closes, just like Rich said, when construction is done. So the city decides when construction's done. I'm going to add to what he said. Ammon would typically let people on till about the last month, but there has to be a line, folks, somewhere. Because let me tell you this: there's big equipment that you'll see move through your yards, and the cheapest time to go to your home is when it's in your yard. And we will put dirt around it, and we will put sod in, and then when we've got to go back, guess what? Even though it pushes everybody's costs down, your home cost more than the people that got done when they went past. So it would be best if you would make that decision while they're there. It benefits everybody.
Bruce, could I simplify what you said?
Yep.
It's cost averaged until the lid closes. Once the lid closes, the cost to build is whatever market is. We build significant infrastructure, and one thing that we've seen over the past 5 to 7 years is cost of labor goes up, cost of consumables, cost of tooling, cost of equipment rental, it all goes up. The beauty of the lid is it's cost averaged until it closes. After it closes, the market is what the market is. The beauty of that, is that if the market goes down, then it's less, but the market never goes down on labor. Labor always goes up. Materials always go up. Equipment rental, car prices, vehicle prices, they all go up, okay? So the utility has to run financially neutral. They can't, they can have some stored reserves, they all do, but they can't make money. So after the lid closes, you lose the opportunity, the opportunity loss is you lose the cost averaging, and the price is what the market is at that time.
So what average are we at now with the amount of people that we've got signed up? Where are we at? What's our back of the napkin?
We are roughly around 45%.
Okay, but what's the cost for us right now?
That's
Where are we at?
The range. He wants the range.
we want to keep it at $3,500. That's what we want to keep it at. So right now we're at 4 with this. If we don't get 50% or better,
Can we pull the map back up?
Yeah, so let me answer, let me kind of.
Because each of those neighborhoods are going to be different cost to build because of the density and the space and, and I'm sure that's why it was laid out that way. And so if we could get the map back up.
Let's see.
Okay, so I want to make sure this is very clear. When you build a new home and you pull a building permit,
Oh, I'd
you
love
pay
one.
fees.
Thank you.
Some of those fees are
Here, I'll pass
connect
one to
fees
Kip.
for sewer and water. But I just told you the developer pays for everything in the development, and your builder pays for the line that goes to your home. So why do you pay a connect fee? Does anybody understand the answer to that? It's capacity replacement, meaning that you've got to increase the well size or the treatment plan, and so we need an incremental increase. So there is a connect fee, and that connect fee in Ammon, and I'm going to predict it's the same here, is going to be whatever the last LID finished at. So in other words, it's going to cost at least or more whatever your neighbors paid. It's never going to be less. So that, I think that's important for you to know. If you opt out of the LID thinking that you can connect for less later, that will never happen.
Yeah,
But I think part of his question is like an electric utility. You build a house down a rural road, the electric utility charges you to run the line down the road, and they charge you for that entire line. Now your neighbors come and, years down the road and build houses and pull off of that line, and you get reimbursed for that. However many years that is down the road, the utility says, okay, now these guys are pulling off the line that you paid to run down that road, and you get a piece of that back because your neighbors tied into that line. And I think that's what he's asking. Now you've paid for this cost, and now other folks are tying into it, so the cost should end up being cheaper overall.
It should, but it sounds like right now, if we're at 4 and they're looking for 3.5, or how you want to look at it, 3,500 versus 4,000, it sounds like we're doing pretty damn decent.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're getting pretty close. So what we're saying is that we want to get more people in the lid as quickly as possible before the lid closes, and then the cost goes down 3,500 or lower.
Lower.
And so to me, that sounds like we're doing pretty damn decent for mountain home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad, you know. But I just wanted to see where we're at,
Yeah.
because okay, all right, I'm left with that liability, whether it's a bond or whatever, you know, that I got to pay off when I do this in my house, or if I decide that okay, hey, I'm going to go to the city, I'm going to give them $1,000 this year to pay off that 4,000 or whatever, you know. But it sounds like we're doing pretty decent.
Yep.
Actually.
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll throw out there. Normally when we start an LID, like I said, they're on LID 5 and M, and every single one of them went up at least 10% because people don't sign up until you start. And you go up about 5% when you start it, and they go, oh, I'm eligible, okay, now I'll do the paperwork, so they go up about 5%. As we go down the street, we get about another 5% as they see the guys working in the yard, people come running out of the house, and they say, hey, can I give you my paperwork, and you know, they get added. So that's kind of the pattern we see. I think it's going to be similar. It's just way that I think people work. So I think it'll go up 10% now that you know where you're going to go. So we feel pretty comfortable about where we're at. Okay. In answer to your question, you are correct. The thing you need to understand is the state law in the LED improvement projects and the law that they got, the judicial confirmation that they have to follow, gives no provision for what you just described. Now, I'm not saying we won't see that one day. I'm saying that state law has never contemplated treating broadband like an electric utility.
So what you're describing is done in the telecommunications industry frequently, and that's actually federally regulated on the build split if somebody adds later. Right now on this utility, there's nothing that says that they have to do that.
Everybody pays their cost to come in because there's no way for the city. They don't have a bucket of money to draw from to buffer it, and they don't have a mechanism to calculate what everybody gets paid back. And in fact, there's no provision in law for them to do that right now. So I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it really isn't. It actually tells you exactly the rules they're going to have to play by. Yeah. I'm not saying the state might not change those rules, but you're talking about universal service. You're talking about some of that functionality. That is not the system that this is being built under.
Right. Additionally, it would help you to know that the city will have significant investment getting the connectivity to each of these build areas in addition to what the property owners are levied for each of their property builds. You know, there's significant underlying infrastructure just to do this, above and beyond just taking it to the house.
But that was already done. You heard it said
Yeah.
that the well sites are connected.
Yeah,
Do you
really
understand?
cool.
So you're going to use
I was
fiber
going
that
to say
was put in.
that
Yeah,
benefit,
yeah.
So we're
part of the
leveraging
benefit
investments.
is for the city.
Well, I hope that you see it as your benefit.
No, I understand, but that was the initial concept, was for the benefit of the city from the standpoint of the wells.
Right.
This is a secondary benefit for the homeowner, so
Yeah.
I don't really look at it from that standpoint, since
Well,
for the benefit of the city, they have to put that infrastructure in anyway from the standpoint of the
Right.
meter reading and the wells and.
Here's the thing I would
that
say
sort
to
of
you
thing.
though. Every community over the next 10 to 20 years, I don't know how long it'll take, I think it's going to be 10 years, will get fiber. The question is, will it be privately owned or publicly owned? That's the question. And I think what you're going to start to see, a widening gap between those that are privately owned, that are operated like cable businesses operated, and those that are municipally operated like the water department. You're going to start to see some big gaps.
Bruce, I got a question right here.
Did you guys already talk about like a timetable for businesses to get, like if you're close to this location? I mean, sure, we see neighborhoods, and does the cost go up because, you know, you don't have houses right next to each other, you got businesses?
So that's a conversation that I kind of need to help as a consultant, help them with. You just need to understand that those are standalone costs, and you just heard me say by law everybody pays their cost to come in.
Sure.
So like what they have to do is they have to look at how close they are to a fiber they can access, okay?
Right.
And then they have to look at what it costs to just put that extension into you. And in Ammon, we just charge each business. Now, I actually had a business pay us $19,000 to connect them, and I've had other businesses that balked at paying $1,500 because the fiber was right in their front lot. So everybody pays a little different, which I know doesn't sound fair, but it's the only way you can do it because it has to stand on its own by law. Everybody has to pay their cost to come into the system, and those costs are completely different based on where there's access to fiber.
So that's not something you guys have considered yet then? Like,
Well, I think they would do it today.
Yeah.
We would, what I need to help them with is I would need to look at where your business is at, talk to you about where the fiber is going to come into the building and where we can set a piece of electronics, how much parking are we going to have to bore under, and then find the closest place to get fiber, and we can give you a cost, and it's a one-time cost. They don't have a way to amortize it for you or spread it out. However,
I'm just more worried about
sometimes
time.
these guys will amortize it for you. Sometimes. So what I'm saying is sometimes these ISPs will say, we'll write the check of the $3,000 to get the initial build there.
Sure.
We're just going to charge you another blank amount per month and have you sign a 3-year deal.
Right, but you made it sound like you're gonna start here, and then when that's done, you'll move on to other areas? Cause like my business is kitty corner to here, and I've had enough of Zito, and like, I'm just sick of it. So, I mean, I want fiber optic as soon as I can get it, like.
So Mike is going to get me the our aerial map of where our current infrastructure is. So right now we've gone down 5th Street, and then we've also, when they were tearing up all downtown, we dropped box and conduit in there just to leave it in there. So as Bruce was saying, if it's $1,500 to just have our guy bore it to you and jump on the platform, why not? So this infrastructure right here, Bruce is going to tell us once we get the sign-ups and see where we're at, we will go out for either an RFP or we'll do the cost of, is it better to have city employees do it, or is it more cost conducive for the citizens to have a third-party entity come and do it? My thing is, I want it in yesterday for you guys. So if Bruce says, hey, it's cheaper to go the third-party route than it is to have 30 employees, I'm going to do the least expensive and the fastest that we can do for you guys. That's my goal.
It's a hard one. So folks, City of Ammon went out to RFP. We didn't want to hire employees. We didn't want to buy equipment. City of Ammon started by connecting businesses. They all paid their way. We did cell towers. We did the public schools. We did fire stations. That's all the stuff we did. And that all stood on its own. It pulled money from various budgets that were government budgets or private budgets, or the cell towers paid for their own. We just kind of started out, and then we started taking businesses under the model that I just described to you. And we brought on some internet service providers. So we were doing that before we did LIDs to the home for about 3 years. So we can do all that. I just lost my thread of thought. Oh, and that was all done with contractors, right? So we didn't own a single bore machine. We didn't pull cable. We didn't do anything. I was splicing, so I did do the little bit of the technical part because I felt like I needed enough ownership over that to understand where everything was and what was going on. So I was just doing splicing. So then we did our first LID, went out to RFP, and we knew what we were paying to hook up businesses. The contractor that did our work doubled his price per foot. So we had an estimate in Ammon. All the pricing came in twice as much. And I went to the contractor that generally worked for us and I said, why'd you double your price? He said, because we're busy every day. You're asking me to go buy a whole nother set of equipment and hire your project. What do I do? And I went, okay. So bottom line, we couldn't do it. With the budget we quoted the citizens, we couldn't do it for. So the city council said, Bruce, is your problem. Either the LID dies and we don't go to the home, or you figure it out. So I went to my office after a week of sucking on my thumb, and I figured out how many employees we had to have, what the equipment cost, how many LIDs it would take to pay for that equipment, and we went forward with our own employees. The good news is, I think the world's a little bit different place. There's more contractors and so forth, but what Rich said is true. What Mountain Home's going to do is they're going to get a design, cost per home, go out and bid labor. They're going to look at the labor and look at whether or not they want to hire seasonal employees to do construction and lay them off when the construction's done or when the weather's bad and they can't work. That's kind of the plan. And then we'll figure out what's in everybody's best interest. But in answer to your question about the business, I think they're wide open for that. It's just a question of fitting it into the schedule and figuring out whether a contractor does your work or the city employees come and do it. I think that's immaterial to you. We just need to figure out what the number is, give you the number. If you say you want to do it, then it's our responsibility to say, is it going to be 60 days, 90 days, what is it? And so I think they're open for that.
Has the backbone of this already been laid in a lot of areas? Like I live on 3rd East, isn't there already?
So Mike just sent this to me. So what we've done is anything in the red down at the bottom, that's that Silverstone. We had to get out to our or our sewer lagoons. We have that running. The green, the red, right where that's I guess it'd be a diamond. That's where we'd like to stick a fiber hut for all of the South 5th area in the future. All the green right there is everything laid in the city currently. So we went out for a grant. We got $547,000 when the COVID grant came out, and we were able to hook up city parks with that funding. That was part of the program if the kids didn't have Wi-Fi at home or internet, they could go to any park with their Chromebook, and also they were able to jump onto that service as well. So the neat thing is we have it going down 3rd Street where you can go left or right, and there's boxes there, there's conduit in the ground, and there's fiber optics cabling going down anywhere in those green areas currently right now.
Gonna hope it works. Sorry.
Oh, you need to flip it up. Sorry.
City clerks, they stress a lot about public meetings and public records, you know. They just don't want to end up in those orange jumpsuits, you know.
No,
it's not good.
no jumpsuit
What's
for
the
me.
gold stars?
Those are the fiber champions. So all of you who are helping to promote the connections, that's the stars those are signifying.
So the places that are getting hooked up starting this spring, did they have great fiber champions? Is that kind of how they got to that point?
Yeah, a lot of the neighborhoods, the fiber champions have really kicked in and helped to bring the numbers up in the area. So that is how we have been able to get to the point of establishing these boundaries for the first local improvement district.
And you'll see if you go by West Elementary, not very many signups. In a lot of those, we think that are maybe are rentals, or that's lower income maybe, and then the word of mouth hasn't gotten out to that section. But we're also thinking outside the box of how do we hook up people that can't afford it. Let's say you have a senior citizen that literally is on a fixed income, can't do it. So we're also trying to think outside the box with Bruce and lower income, because everybody needs this service. Whether it's in my heart of hearts, everybody has to have the internet to do your work, to school, whatever it is. So I'll digress and let you go there, Bruce. So. But this is currently all the infrastructure, and we just got so we have a phenomenal, no joke, a phenomenal relationship with ITD, and they allowed us to go under the I-84. So it doesn't show it, but we are under. So if you go, where's my mouse up there? It's not showing it. Anyways, we are up at the water tank. Somebody back in the day put a 6-inch.
Yeah, a 6-inch pipe going underneath.
So we were able to get up to that water tower, and then we also, I'm sure Councilman Russell said, "Oh, that was me," but we did it to get our fiber optics cable up to those two. What do you call it? The two water tanks and our new pump up there, and we were able to just last week get across to get to our other water tank over by the golf course. So we're doing our best to get these, and then obviously coming down that frontage road, we have to get to the Gary property, which we have a well there, to hook that up as well. So our guys are working diligently trying to get all that stuff hooked up as well.
So, go ahead.
I just had a question. So for the areas that already have already existing homes, are you guys still digging through the backyards? Are you coming in through the lines that are already present? Like a lot of the fiber optics are in other areas, like CenturyLink does, or are you guys still digging all the way straight to the homes?
To my knowledge, everything will be underground. It'll all either be in public utility easement or right of way. When it leaves that, it will need to be in your property, and you will have need to participate in the LID. Otherwise, the city can't enter your private property. There is a lot of confusion about where the right-of-way ends and where the public utility easement is, because I can just tell you from experience, people will say, you're in my yard. Yes, public right-of-way is in your yard, so is utility easement, but by law, they have to be in those areas. They cannot enter into your private property, meaning they can't leave that to go up towards your house without your permission. The document you sign that says, I want to be in the LID, gives them permission.
Okay, so if our fence is literally somebody else's fence, how does that work? Will they be going back through in between the homes, or are they coming from like the front into the back? Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, they should be by the public road, so they're probably going to come from the front and go to, so
Be drilling too.
yeah, it's underground. They don't trench or anything, so they actually, and then they'll poke up beside the house. To kind of clarify this, I believe they'll run it the same way I'm used to running it, because I think they're counting on us to kind of walk them through the steps. As the equipment starts to come into your neighborhood, your sign-up form has an email address. The city should be emailing out to you a calendar that you get to choose your appointment time, and you will be asked to choose an appointment time, and somebody will meet with you at your home and talk about where you want the fiber to come into your home and how you want that to look. They will talk to you about what the city is willing to do. And in fact, I can touch on that briefly. The city is willing to, they'll come up beside your home, they will set a box on the side of your home where the fiber comes up.
Yeah.
They are not allowed to run the same fiber that's in the ground into your home for fire protection reasons. So what happens in that box is they convert it to a different type of fiber, and they'll drill through one wall, and they'll set the device in your garage, they'll set it in a room. If you have a crawl space or something, they might, depending on the situation, be willing to help you go through there. If you want it in the interior of your home, meaning like you want somebody to run it in or run it through the attic or something, they will give you the fiber, and you can hire a contractor or you can do it yourself, but they will not do major installation in the home. They are not insured, trained, or anything to be drilling holes in your walls and things. They will go in through one exterior wall and do that work for you, okay?
So how do you get it from the box to the house?
From the box.
Or from the street to the house?
Okay, so the
How
box.
my question is, how much of a mess are you gonna make in my front yard?
2 holes. Just 2 holes.
Well, so it depends on how many utilities they have to cross. By law, if there's a power line, a phone line, or whatever, those will get painted. So as the crew comes through there, whether you're getting fiber or not, by the way, people will all the time call and they'll say, well, I'm not getting fiber, but they marked my lines. Well, the law says if they're going down that street, they have to mark the stuff in the front yard. Okay? So when that gets marked, there'll be a box, and that box typically straddles the 2 lots. That makes sense, right? And so they're going to go to one house this way out of that hole, and they're going to go to one house this way. So they make the hole where the box is going to be. They set up a piece of equipment, and they shove a piece of steel in the ground, and then they have a way of steering it, and they'll poke it up. Every utility they cross, they have to make a hole, and they have to actually see that steel cross it. That's the law. Okay? So there will be holes any place they cross a utility. And there'll be little holes like this. They take a high pressure wand like you'd wash your car with, and they blow it into the ground, and they have a vacuum, and they suck it up. So it ends up just being a round hole that goes down there. That's how they do it, because that wand won't break the existing utilities in the ground. Like if you took a backhoe and tried to do it, it makes a mess, and then it's hard. So they're going to basically hydro excavate to expose the utility so that they have line of sight as they cross it to comply with law. Once they cross it, they will fill it in and put sod in and do all that.
I don't have grass. A zero scape.
Zero scape?
A
So
zero
is it rock?
Rock.
So probably what they'll do, I mean, my recommendation would be rake the rock to the side, get it down to dirt, do the hole. When they're done, they'll fill dirt in there, and then rake the rock back over it.
We will definitely put your yard back to it where it was. We don't want it tore up. If they break something, we will take care of that as well.
One thing I can tell you from experience is, you might know the mayor, and you might call him and say, hey, there's this hole, you need to fix it. Can I just tell you from experience, it works way better if you use the email we give you and tell us you have a problem. No strike against the mayor or any elected official. That's not my point. The point is there are people that are assigned to fill those things and fix those things, and they get those emails directly. And what happens is, the mayor, I know this because I've done it, the mayor will say, oh, I forgot to tell you 2 weeks ago so-and-so called me, and I'll say, okay, what's his address? Well, I don't know. You have to go look it up. So now I got to go look it up. And then I've got to remember to tell the guy that does it, and then I forget for 2 weeks. And then by then, the guy calls the mayor back and says, I told you 4 weeks ago. So it's not intentional. I'm just saying that there are channels that will get set up as part of the process, and you'll actually get faster results if you use those channels. So we got a bunch of, and you've tried numerous times.
When you guys were installing this in Amherst, what was the most common way that they interface with the lien? Just the box on the side of the house, or did they go under the foundation and up through the flooring?
Basements are really, really common in Ammon. I don't know that they are here. I don't know that. Basements are really, really common. If there's a mechanical room anywhere in the front half of the home, it was really common that we'd poke up, go through the rim joist, which is the ceiling of the basement, and go into the mechanical room and set the equipment in there. That was really, really common. That we do some in the garage, and it looks to me like a lot of you have more or less your water heater and your furnace in your garage. We can put it in the garage, that's fine. That's one exterior wall. The issue you're gonna have is that you're gonna probably want your Wi-Fi router in your home, right? So if you have a network cable that goes somewhere in your home that goes to like the side of your garage, that even if it's poked outside, that we can basically cut a little hole and pull it to the inside of the garage, then we'll poke the fiber in, set the device on the wall inside the garage. We'll plug the fiber into that, plug that copper into that. That copper then goes to your Wi-Fi router in your home, and that's how it works. So that's the install we did today. It's actually installed in the garage. I don't know if we have any pictures of it or not, but
There was a question that came through from the online platform. They wanted to inquire about the connection reliability that we'll have with the fiber optics.
so we've separated the infrastructure from the service. So I think I have to be really clear. Traditional models bundle them. Agreed? Cable goes down, the same guy owns the wire as does the service. So the city knows when it has a fiber problem. I don't always know when the ISPs have a problem. I will tell you that when I was at Ammon, probably 90% of the time I would, because they still call the city and say I'm having a problem, but we know it's not the fiber. Reliability is a tough question. I think individual results vary. I'm not going to fib to you and tell you any different. What I will tell you is fiber is very binary. It's on or it's off. The light makes it through or it doesn't. The electronics are turned on or they aren't. It's a very low level technical problem because it either runs or it doesn't. It's very unusual that the fiber has a problem where it affects bandwidth. That's extremely unusual. I think these guys would vouch for that. I would say this. I would say the city probably has, City of Ammon would have some fiber issues. Every time there's a power outage, there's a certain number of customers that things just don't come up correctly. That's associated with the power outage. In terms of a complete, total oddball thing going down, what would you say, Tyler? That's completely our fault once every year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
We do have lines that get dug up and broken, and when they get dug up and broken, it takes us 4 to 6 hours to fix them. That happens. The thing that you should know is when it happens in Ammon, all the public schools that are in that area go down. All of our well sites go down. So the pressure, believe it or not, is we've got to get everybody up. So you're not any different than the city is or anybody else is. So I don't know if that's any comfort to you, but the pressure is on us to perform. What do you guys, I kind of want to ask you guys, they're asking about reliability. What's your experience?
We're not down very often. Every city that we're in has cross connects that go from our infrastructure to that city. And sometimes those cross connects go down, but those are outside of our control. I can tell you that usually on the metro infrastructure, it's underground. Squirrels don't often chew it underground unless they're pretty determined. And this is way more stable than a copper product. Likely most things that are providing data infrastructure to your houses and businesses now are copper products. I think the actual lifespan of carrier grade fiber optic glass is still being determined. The last article that I read, they were stating greater than 50 years. I mean, this is very long-term, high-speed connectivity. And the neat thing about the glass is, as the technology changes, you change the lasers on each end, and now it's 10 times faster. Change the lasers again, it's 10 times faster again. You know, it's an Ethernet framed and signaled network. There's no modems. Modem would be a modulator, demodulator. We're not changing packet types. You know, very, very stable infrastructure. And so short of what we would call, act of God, clause in any contractual thing that every carrier has, single man backhoe theory, lots of different ways to describe it. That in principle, the architecture is very stable.
I think that's what I'm trying to communicate. I should tell you folks, this is Quinn Whipple with QuickNet. He's one of the ISPs. This is David Burr. He's Sumo Fiber. So David, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I would say that as far as the technology goes, we have maybe 15 customers that actually have 10 gigabit to their home. And that's using the same fiber. I don't think we're offering that here initially, but it's the same fiber. I mean, I'll give you 10 gig.
So I think the reason I'm hedging a little bit is because the most common failures, I'm going to tell you, it's typically your Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
It's in 95%, 99, 98. We actually have documented it. It's like 98% of the time it's your Wi-Fi router. It's not the fiber.
And having old routers, bad idea.
Yeah.
I got two questions. Hopefully they're quick. First one, are we going to explore? Are we going to make public when there are public grants and ways for people to pay for this stuff? Through government funding. Is that going to be made available to everybody? Like, is it going to be advertised by the city when there's a grant that comes out from federal? Because I know there's stuff coming, left and right. Is that going to be made public, saying, "Hey, we've got grants. If you're eligible, here's how to sign up"? Is that going to be something you guys can provide the city, or is that out of the reach of the government?
So the government's still wrestling with this concept of separating infrastructure from service. Everything they've ever envisioned about the internet is bundled. The wire and the internet are the same thing. So most of the government money has been focused on subsidy, right? There's emergency broadband benefit, that's a subsidy. That has to flow to the ISPs. The city's not eligible for it. There's discussions about what that needs to look like. Very clearly, if you look at the current grants that are starting to come out, there are actually scoring bonuses for being open access, which means more than one provider on a network that's neutrally operated so that everybody the providers get to come on at an equal cost and compete. So there is a concept in this country that's starting to catch on, that's been in other lands for a long time, that we can't compete by building multiple wires to the same premise. It doesn't really enable competition because the monopoly cost is so high to build that first wire. It's really hard for the second one to come in and compete because now he's got to take customers, and now you're supporting two infrastructures. So anyway, I kind of digressed on you. So I think where I'm going is absolutely the city will help you and tell you what's available. I think you could get emergency broadband benefit today. It's as easy as proving that one of your children gets a subsidized school lunch, and you can get it. It's $50 a month to go towards your internet bill right now. It's going to drop to $30. They've stretched it another 5 years. They just did that last month. So absolutely, we're happy to do that. I do think the grants are going to start to focus on what are we going to subsidize, the wire or the service? And so I think you're going to start to see some of those distinctions happen over the next 2 years because this is a dynamic, very dynamic, moving thing right now.
And the second question, I'm going to switch hats. Mountain Home Air Force Base. When, how, why? Or when, not why, but when and how are we going to get it out to base housing?
So Marty Anderson is currently working with the comm squadron commander out there, and we've had multiple meetings with him. Because I know out there it's not very well. It's not very good out there for all squadrons and departments out there. So Marty Anderson, he's our military liaison for the city. He is definitely meeting with the comm squadron. We've been working on this project for last year. We tried to go out for a grant, a DoD grant, to get it out there. Got turned down but we scored really high. So they know it's a quality of life and a necessity. Because right now you don't have double redundancy backup out there, and so we've offered from the city on our end as well to get it out there as a double redundancy backup in quality of life for the airmen as well, if the DoD was willing to pay for that infrastructure. And they know that we're working with the DoD, where it's a city and the defense communities working together. It's that partnership where we will do it because they know that we won't do it for, let's say if it's a $5 million and it only costs $1 million, we'd only do it for the $1 million, not where, let's say if it's a different ISP doing it for $5 million. I think they got the last quote out there was $12 million to run another fiber optic cable out there. And so we were like, well, we can, and we had some numbers from not Bruce, but Robert. If we were to lay the conduit, lay it to our hut here in Mountain Home and get it out there, the 10 miles going along our rail line, I think it was about a little less than $1.5 million. And then the squadron out there could split we were going to run 288 count out there. They could split it. They could take 144 in their little hut. This goes to DoD's high net security systems. This one goes to the rest of the base, and then they could have their own hut in Mountain Home if they so choose. So it's a work in progress. The grant thing too, really quick. Sorry, Mark. Idaho, we're waiting to see what the governor. I know his big thing now, his big push is broadband.
220 million.
220 million. I will go out for every dollar that I can get, and we'll see. I was able to get the 547,000, but that was pulling teeth, pulling nails, and they gave us a dedicated timeline to get it done. And if not, we had to pay it back. So we had to scale our project down, knowing we got with that third-party entity saying, hey, we want to do this. We want to at least get the infrastructure down 3rd Street, get it to all the parks so the kids have the opportunity to get on those 3 parks. So it's Railroad Park. No, it's not Railroad Park. It's Richard Aguirre, Stone Tree, and Legacy Park. Legacy Park gives us the bandwidth. We can go 350 feet in every direction, so anybody can jump on that platform. And we were able to get it done. And we scored really well because we had another 5 days or 15 days left over. But we wanted to get it done early enough so that way if there's any hiccups through the state of Idaho, we could say, hey, we did our part. The problem is we had an ISP challenge the city of Mountain Home saying they should meet, they're overbuilding their infrastructure. That's the frustrating part, is we're just trying to do good work for you guys, and then you have an ISP saying, no, that they're overbuilding.
But it's us.
It wasn't them, yeah. Yeah.
Not us either.
We were able to get it in.
So a lot of the grants, the baseline is that if you have 25 meg down, 3 meg up available, and that all they have to do is say it's available. It doesn't have to even be proven that they can deliver it. You're not eligible for a lot of these grants. The good news is that's starting to change. Some of the grants have shifted to 120. But that still means that a normal cable company will contest any grant application. But now we're at least at a point where DSL is no longer a barrier. So the phone company is not a barrier to those. Again, these things are extremely dynamic and changing because I think the reason it's changing is what I described to you and what's happening in LA and Detroit, because we're basically, there's large segments of people there that we would like to say, well, they can pull themselves up. The truth is they can't. These kids are not going to recover from 2 years in no school, losing one parent working 2 and 3 jobs. I've visited those cities. I've seen it. It's very sad. It is a social issue. We need to move beyond saying we've got to protect private capital investment when they've made their money, and we need to step forward and say, how do we fairly move through this process and recognize what you've done? If that makes sense to everybody here, that from my perspective, that's really where we're at. We just need to start thinking about that, because think about what that would mean, not having access to a school for 18 months. What it means to not be able to log into your bank, not being able to do anything online. I mean, you don't have anything. Think about what it means if you could have it. How would that change your life? What opportunities are available? So you're going to hear a lot about digital equity. That's the term we're applying, and what Mountain Home is building is digital access. It is not internet, it's digital access, which means anything that's digital that wants to come onto the system, the city will support. Today it's internet. Tomorrow it will be something else. It will be automated cars, it will be whatever it is, but the city's preparing for that.
Bruce, is the network protected from EMP?
Electromagnetic pulse?
Yeah.
It doesn't affect
could happen.
glass.
It'll ruin
affect
switches and
glass.
everything in between it, but the
Well,
fiber will be
any of the
okay.
electronics are affected by that. Anything electronics affected. Fiber itself is not an electronic signal, it's light, so it's not affected by that. Magnetics don't affect light.
Faraday cages will cost an extra $1 million.
But, so,
Okay. Councilman Brandon?
Thanks. This is kind of my city council brain on the financing individually. For, I guess just to clarify, you talk about cost averaging. Do the citizens pay after they're connected? So you're saying because of cost averaging, they then either write a check to the city or long-term finance?
yeah. So let me describe the closing process. So you've got an opening process that allows you to borrow money. You can borrow it from yourself or however you want to do it, but so Ammon borrowed money from itself, okay? So it did use general fund money, which is allowed because the city, if they have a reserve, you guys have all heard of government reserve, right? So if the city has some money in reserve, that's invested. That makes sense, right? It's invested, and there are laws about how risky that investment can be. But if the city has reserve, it can take that money and loan it to another department, but that is an arm's length transaction with terms and payback. So City of Ammon funded construction loans to the fiber department that got paid back when the construction was done. So you do the opening process, you now have engineering, you can start the process, you can borrow money, put a shovel in the ground, you start to install fiber. You get done, you have to do a public process. Everybody that's in the district, whether they took fiber or not, gets a letter that says, hey folks, we're about done. And this is how much we've spent, and this is how much we estimate everybody will owe. We are going to have a public meeting. If you feel like we are wrong, we have messed up your yard, we have not done what you've asked us to do, please come to this public meeting and tell us, because we will reconcile our books. This is your chance to tell us what we need to fix so that we have the numbers right. That make sense to everybody? So you'll get that notice. You need to come in and do it. You can do it in writing. You can submit something in writing. That's perfectly legal. The city has to deal with each and every one of those. So that comes in. Every LID I've participated in, we get one or two. And typically it's, oh, I bought a house and the previous people opted into the LID and I don't want it. So we have to deal with that. Or it's somebody that says, you guys have still got a hole in my yard, you need to fix this or whatever. So we deal with those things. They have to be dealt with and acknowledged as part of the process. It could be in writing, whatever. So then we know, then we say, hey, okay, now we know because, hey, we forgot about this hole and it cost us another $100 to fix, and so now we've added that to our number, or this house really didn't want in, and so, you know, we figure that out and we adjust the math so the math is correct, and we send out another public notice to you that says, hey folks, good news, we are done, and we do know this is what we've spent, and we do know this is what you owe. From the day you receive that, you have 30 days. You can come pay in full, no interest. That is the amount you'll pay, and your connection is paid for. All you got to do is pay the utility fee monthly and pay one of these guys for internet. So people that do that in Ammon are paying between $27 a month and $45 a month, depending on what they're doing, for 1 gig internet with no data cap or anything. So that's what they're paying. So if you don't do that, and you don't pay within the 30 days, the city goes to a bank and says, here's the remainder that's left from people that didn't pay us. Will you give us a 20-year or 15-year or 30-year bond, whatever it is, and what's the interest rate? And the city negotiates on your behalf, finds the best deal, and then they will get that bond, and then they will come back to you and tell you what your annual, you pay it one time a year, payment is. And it's probably going to be somewhere around $240, $260 a year until it's paid off. You can pay it off at any time, but you can't get out of the interest that's accrued. You will pay the interest that's accrued and one future year at the time you pay it. Now this sounds kind of goofy. They made the LID law when it was an annual accrual. So you're used to interest accruing daily, right? Because you take a car loan, interest changes, and you'll say, what's my payoff? And they say, well, it's good for 5 days, and this is the amount because it accrues at a certain rate. By law, LIDs accrue interest 1 time a year. So it's on its anniversary date, it'll accrue that interest. So if you go to pay it off, they'll say, oh, here's what it is with the interest that's due, and then you pay 1 future year interest, and that's the amount you'll pay off. And it's because it's an annual accrual. It's because the law is so old. It's been around forever.
So is the plan to eventually have access to every house in Mountain Home? Because my problem is I'm like a few blocks outside of that neighborhood where it's supposed to go, and a lot of people in my neighborhood right there, they're rentals. So the tenants obviously aren't going to pay for that.
Right. So some of the problems that we're starting to see across the country, in answer to your question, yes. At the end of the day, if you really do an analysis, one infrastructure wins. One infrastructure is winning right now. And in here, I would predict it's Zito. I would predict it's the cable operator because DSL just probably isn't cutting it. So what I'm trying to tell you is it typically ends up being one monopoly infrastructure, and you suffer from a lack of competition because there's no requirement for them to give you any particular price. This model changes that, and I would view this as an investment as you and as a community, and the more of you that do this, the cheaper it gets. Absolutely. So that's the message that I would give your neighbors is I would say, listen, these folks here, I've worked with these folks for a decade, right? They will tell you, I believe this. Government's place is infrastructure. It's not in innovation. It's not in network operation. I think that these guys are better at it. And I think we just need to build really dumb fiber that's either on or it's off and let them do their thing. And I think that's the best model. Other cities will be the ISP. That's okay. I personally think the problem with the city being the ISP is they're not going to understand how to handle it when that network becomes what's necessary for driving cars, for all these other things.
Say one other thing too is that usually what we've seen is when we go into cities is that the cable companies can't compete with us, and so they end up lowering their costs. So it trickles down the whole city anyway.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe give a different perspective. I actually moved to Mountain Home about the end of May, beginning of June, and I came from a community that owned their own fiber network. And I will tell you, when you are used to having internet that works and you move here and you do get Zito, which you mentioned, it's a shock because I do look for home.
Anybody here represent Zito?
It's no offense to Zito, but I will tell you, I lived where I did. It was a place called Highlands, Issaquah Highlands, and what happened is we all owned the internet. It was a part of our deed when we bought the house, and you had mentioned that it went up 3% or so. I can tell you that when you got into that neighborhood, if you were fortunate enough to find a house, your property values kept doubling and going higher and higher. And the primary reason was because you had reliable internet that you couldn't get anywhere else. You couldn't get it from Comcast that was there or any of the others. When I moved here, that was the biggest disappointment. This is a great place. My daughter, my son-in-law love it here. I came here since I worked at home and wanted to be closer to them. Love everything about it except the internet. I was so glad when I saw an advertisement that you guys were going to put fiber in. Our model is a little different than the model you have here. I'm not sure the model matters much to me, quite honestly. I just want the reliability. I lived there 8.5 years. The cable or the internet never once went out. It was so good that they had backup power that if you had a generator at your house, you could get internet while the rest of the places were all shut down. Nobody could work. So every business that had backup kept functioning. They had their point of sale systems up, everything working because of the way we controlled our community internet. And it sounds like, our fiber, it sounds like that's what we're trying to do here. And so just from a perspective of where I came from and then realizing, what the real world has to deal with, I can tell you that there's no question. I don't even care what the cost is anymore. I just want my fiber network back desperately because it is so different with the reliability. I use everything streaming now. I don't have cable anymore. I just have streaming services. And it buffers every single 5 minutes or so, it seems like, with Zito. back home when or the old place I lived at, I never had any buffering issues. You never had anything happen. And I will tell you there, you start out at $50, you can get higher, whatever those gigs are. I don't understand all that, but you could pay a little bit more for whatever you wanted higher. But our community did so well with that they did have big reserves, and they ended up kicking off a lot of that money to do scholarships and stuff for the kids in the community as they went off to college and stuff. So there were a lot of benefits that came from owning your own system. There's a lot of benefits, I think, of what you're talking about, owning it through the city. It just seems like a no-brainer. If anyone wants to know what it's like, you know, having had it and then lose it, just ask me. I'm just desperate to, and I kept bugging this Mike guy, asking him, please, can we be one of the early ones? I live in Silverstone, so I'm glad it's actually coming up soon.
So I want you guys to know, so what we've done is we've done double backup, redundant backup at both huts. So the hut that's on 3rd Street up by Legacy Park, that has a battery backup system, and it also has a generator backup system. The first hut has a battery backup system, and it's got a generator backup system. So you'll never have the power go down on the city's end. Now, can't control the power company, but
I'll say one more thing. So this is an open access network, so there's really no reason that Zito can't join this network and deliver a good product. You know what I'm saying? So CenturyLink and what's that cable company?
That's one of the things I wanted to say, because you heard me. I probably should be careful and just say the cable company, because I'm not trying to. They made an investment, folks. You know, and the truth is their infrastructure isn't as good. Now they're going to say it is, but it's not. I mean, that's the truth. So
can I say the guys who came to hook it up were some of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
It's not that the people who work here and put their heart and soul into it weren't good.
Yeah.
The cable just doesn't work. I mean,
Yeah.
the internet, it just keeps going out, and that's just the reality of it.
yeah, and so you know this is hard because under this model, it's you get to decide, and if the city could just say everybody's going to get it, everybody's costs go down. Like if they could say like they do with water, no, you're going to do it, but there's no legal provision in Idaho. They can't do that. They're not interested in having that fight. They don't want to force anybody. Over time, we expect it would get cheaper, and it's really important everybody understands. Zito can still run their stuff. Nobody's taking that away from them. If Zito wants to come on and provide it across the city's fiber, they can do it. I can tell you that conversation is happening with the incumbent cable operator in Ammon. It has happened. Headquarters does not. They are not in favor because they know that once they pull the cork, the dam is going to burst. So they're a little bit opposed. I can tell you that Lumen makes thousands of dollars in Ammon today because they're actually providing backhaul for some of these folks. So they're still making their money. They just don't have that one-to-one customer relationship. They're instead selling to another person. So.
As far as, it's a question for the ISPs, customer service is kind of a joke with some of the service providers that I've had in the past. And I'm just wondering what your guys' take on your own customer service is going to be. Say if, you know, in the off chance if something does happen, what am I looking at as far as a response time via call or in person?
So we're 24/7 on our customer service. But the one nice thing about having competition is that if you're unhappy and you switch to Quinn because he does a better job, that's my problem. So I have to give you good customer service so you stay with us.
Right.
But that's what the beauty of this whole thing is. We're competing, but we need to be good.
Can I dive into that detail a little bit? They will all have phone numbers you can call. Okay. He mentioned he's 24/7. I'm going to tell you flat out, Fibercom is not. Okay. I told you there were differences in how they do things. I told you there was differences. That's one of the differences. So Fibercom will tell you their customer service is open, and I don't quote me, but last I think it was 9 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. at night. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem outside of those hours, they're not going to answer the phone. Quinn, what are your hours?
Yes. We're a 24/7 company, but I send my technicians home so that they can be with their kids.
Right.
They're on call 24/7. If there's a network issue, it's likely we know about it before you do because of how we run our network, and we're proactively working it. 99.9% of the time, it goes back to basic troubleshooting. Is it plugged in? Is it turned on? and it's usually inside of your house.
And just so you guys know, we have access to that portal, so we can see that you're plugged in, you're not plugged in. So we have a little bit of troubleshooting that we can do as well.
And you need to understand that from a network topology, it's a single fiber strand dedicated to you from your house to the city's aggregation. It's not shared with anybody. So, you know, when we see link, it is unique to you. If we see packets going up and down that link, it's unique to you. You know, it's not a shared network topology like what cable uses and other things. It's actually really cool, and it's I want to use the word timeless, but that's an absolute. And I try not to deal in absolutes, but it's an infrastructure that will last a very long time and a topology that's stable and replicatable over a very long period of time.
So basically, if your internet dies, call your neighbor, see if they're dead. If they're up, then it's your problem.
I want to make one other point here.
Just kidding.
Make one other point. When you sign up and you agree to start paying the monthly utility bill, on that form, you're going to be signing up for residential or commercial with Mountain Home. So you're going to say, well, what's the difference? The difference is the hours that they will come support you. That's the difference. So a residential account in Ammon, and I think Mountain Home's going to follow suit, you get support when the city's open. Now that doesn't mean somebody won't answer the phone. It means that we won't send somebody to your house to help you. If the neighborhood's down and more than one home is down, like 3 homes are down, we get an alarm already. We know that. So we will respond after hours anytime when that happens. But if you're the only one down and we have link to your home, it's typically in your home. And so we won't dispatch somebody. It raises our costs. It raises costs for everybody to do that. So we will come next business day. If you're a residential and you're the only one down, you can talk to somebody. In Ammon, I think they'll do it the same here. If there's a number you call for sewer or water emergencies, it will be the same number, and you'll press a 1 or a 3, and you'll be directed to a fiber person who can ask you a few questions, try and help you. And then he'll double check. If nobody else is down, you're the only one. He's going to tell you, we'll come next business day. Why don't you call us when we open Monday morning or when we open tomorrow morning? Tell us that you're still down if you haven't fixed it, and we'll dispatch somebody to come that day and take care of it for you.
And see, for me, good customer service. If you're down from on the city's end, you call if it is a weekend, you call that number, just like a water wastewater. We'll come out there. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is calling an ISP saying I'm down. Oh, we'll get to you next Thursday between 8 and 5. I don't have enough time to sit there next Thursday between 8 and 5. I want someone in 15 minutes, just like a water wastewater guy. That is my expectation for the city on the city side.
So it all depends. So, like I said, in Ammon, the way we run it is if you're residential, we don't dispatch to your home if you're the only one down and we can see the fiber is up if you're a residential account. If that doesn't work for you and you want somebody there, whatever the day or time is, pay for a commercial account. It's a different cost, and that allows me to pay people to be on call more. So that's how we managed it there. So the commercial account's $25 a month versus, the $17, $18. So for $25 a month, we'll come anytime, but we're going to treat you like a business. And the reason I point that out is because for business, these guys are going to have to be 24/7, 365. Okay?
Yeah, I guess these guys will know that. Got the fiber in my house, and it's going to my router. It goes to your box first.
Bruce's box first, the modem.
Yeah, it's not really called a modem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So virtual broadband gateway is, I think, the term that they use.
Yeah.
Is there any indication?
What I'm concerned about when it fails, that you just call on the phone and somebody will come out?
That'll be the next day dispatch.
Yep, that'll be next day dispatch, yeah.
And who pays for that?
Depends on how Mountain Home wants to set up their fees. I'm just leveling with you. I don't know that that's 100%. It's paid for out of your LID. The question is, do you want Mountain Home to charge you another, say, $3 to $4 a month so that they have money to buy it, or do you just want to buy it when it fails? That's the question. So just very much like a DOCSIS modem or a DSL modem, you have an option. The question is, who owns it, or do you want to pay an additional amount to have? We don't have all that firmly set yet. That is something we will work on.
And you don't have any idea how much it costs?
Oh yeah, we know how much it costs. Right now, chipsets are up and things are pretty expensive. The device that goes in the home that we use is $330 total.
And so, if mine fails, it's gonna be...
So let me tell you this. In Ammon, we give you the manufacturer gives you a 3-year warranty, and so we warranty it 3 years. If it fails after that, we base it on why did it fail, because they typically run 10 years, over 10 years. So if you knock it off your wall, we pretty much ask you, or you step on or you break it, we pretty much ask the customer to buy it. If it fails in that 3 years, we can get the manufacturer to take care of it. If it doesn't fail in that first 3 years, they're still running. We just don't have a lot of trouble. So I hate to tell you this, but in Ammon, we replace them sometimes for people at no cost, and other times we tell them they have to pay for it. We just take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. In three years, as fast as technology's going, you'd be ready for another one anyway.
Then you'll want 10 gig.
So we can do 10 gig now, just so you know. Nobody really wants to pay for it yet, but we can do it.
So the gateway is included in with the hookup and everything else, and we're paying the $3,700.
Yep.
It's just, we have to have the Cat 5 going from there to our port or whatever.
Yeah, to your Wi-Fi router or to a PC, whatever it is that's basically going to plug into it.
The layout that you guys have for the zones here for the boundaries, how did you guys come up with those boundaries? Was it based off of people signing up, and what's your time frame, and how do we get, so I'm right next to the golf course, so if I get, how would you expand those areas so that we could get it, hooked up what we wanted?
Yeah, and I can address that one. So initially, starting with this first LID, we are trying to be as cost effective as we can for the citizens. So we created those boundaries based off of the largest amount of signups, because starting with those areas that have the largest amount of signups in turn is going to keep the initial connection cost for each homeowner down. And after we are done with this LID, we're going to continually keep working towards finishing this one and moving on to the next one. So the process is not going to stop. So my recommendation is, talk to your neighbors, get the word out for people to sign up, because we will be utilizing that data to help establish the next LID boundaries.
What's your time frame?
We plan on connecting up to 1,100 homes a year. Most of the LIDs, we're looking at a year time frame. If we have 1,100 homes and all 1,100 homes want to get connected, that might be pushed out to a 18 or 24 month time frame. But generally speaking, we're looking at a connection time frame between about 8 to 15 months. And we are hoping, if everything works out right, to get started with this first LID this coming spring, so within 2-3 months.
I want to have it close. In a perfect world, I want everyone hooked up in this first LED by the end of, what do we say, July? I was really running and gunning.
July 2023?
No.
Realistically, so I'm the realist here.
He made me scale it down. Is what he did.
It all depends on whether or not this gets outsourced or done internally. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
So a lot of that hinges on that. Until that decision's made, it just kind of depends.
So are we talking about 4 years now?
No, there's no way it's going to run that long. So
that's within the bounds of this LID right now. So that's what they're saying. They're wanting that done within the next 18 months.
I want it done.
But he wants it sooner, yeah.
The challenge you got is, like, right now they're going to start the process of creating it. That takes like 90 days. So you're not going, and then you order materials. I can just tell you right now, and everybody knows this, the market's totally blown up. Like, there's some materials that are literally, I'm not fooling you, because I'm working, I just told you, we're working in 28 places across the country. Some of those materials are 9 months out. The good news is we can get conduit fast, so at least we can get started. But some of this stuff is way out there. So, and some of it I would actually advise you, don't buy it till you need to, because I think some of it's going to start coming back down. So It's a hard market right now. I think it's still a mistake to advise you to wait because I don't think it's going to get cheaper. I think inflation is going to hold. I do think some things will start to come down. I think electronics will come back down, but some of these other things won't. If you want my gut feeling, this will get opened and you're going to be closing this thing about this same time next year. You're going to start the closing process. I think you're going to be totally done and finished sometime around next May, June, because you're not going to get a shovel in the ground till May.
When you guys are working with your city council and your mayor on if they build it in-house or outsource it, you have to realize that the outsource contractors take their available manpower and their available equipment stack and use it for companies like mine, companies like CenturyLink, which the big umbrella for CenturyLink is now Lumen, okay? They use it, that infrastructure, to build for your cable company, for cell tower providers. So the last project that we did that we used contract labor for, I had to schedule a year in advance because their work crews were that busy doing work for people bigger than me. If I were recommending, I would encourage your city council to give strong consideration to keeping it in-house. The beauty of that I learned a long time ago in this industry is the more that I brought in-house, when it broke, I knew which guy had to fix it. And if it broke in the middle of the night, the mean time between repair was significantly less because we not only designed the infrastructure, we built it. And when something breaks that you built, you know which rock to look under to find the repair. You know, and so I'm really excited for your city. This is a huge step. And a short-term investment in infrastructure and staff is going to pay dividends, you know, years from now.
Yep. Did we answer
I'm gonna get him because he's been.
I got a question, mostly for the city folks. When it comes to the utility payment scheme for the long run, like I've got a little house in over there by West Elementary. Live in it now. Probably will rent it out in the future. Say my renter doesn't want to use the fiber. What's the plan, utility-wise, and from the utility department, to handle that payment situation?
So they would literally call here, like your water, your wastewater, and your trash. They'd call here and they'd say, wait, I don't want it anymore. And we'd just program it. We'd have a guy go over there, flip the switch, and you're done. But if they want it, they can jump back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How's that going to affect the long-term function of the system?
Right. So a couple of things I'm going to point out to you. You can turn it off and not pay the monthly fee, but you're still, if you haven't paid off the connection fee, that still rolls because the bank is going to take a bond and that bill's still going to have to be paid. Everybody understands that. But you can turn off the monthly fee, no problem. In Ammon, we decided there's really no cost to us to turn it off. So you can turn it off for $0. When you want it to get turned back on, we do charge a turn-on fee. The reason is because if there's upgrades and things that have happened to the system, we may have to send somebody out there to get that device to work again. It depends on how long it's been off. Plus, so there are two separate systems. So we have to go into utility billing and say, hey, turn this back on, reapply this fee. And we have to go into the system, reconnect, see if we have to update anything. If we can push it to it, we will, but sometimes it depends on how old that piece of equipment is. So it reads in the disconnect that there's zero fee, but when you turn on, it's $45. And if you've been off for longer than a year or two, you may have to buy a new piece of equipment if we've moved past what you have in your home. But that really doesn't, like I just told you, I wouldn't see that happen except for once every 8 years or something, you know.
Hey, really quick, if your mortgage is paid off before the installation loan attached to it, how is the fiber loan then paid off? Is it attached to your tax bill yearly, or will you be required at point to pay the balance in full? What are your options?
The bill does not come to you on your tax bill. The county does not collect it unless you're late. 2 years late, the city turns it over to the county. It gets rolled up into your tax assessments from the county. and you get penalized a bunch of late fees. So you do not want to not pay it and let that happen. Seriously, the late fees are going to total as much as the annual payment. Okay? Those are set by law. They can't change that. So they didn't make the late fees. They're actually in the state law. So you just need to keep that in mind. And they are incredibly high, and they're high for a reason. But what happens is the city is actually going to send you a bill once a year, and you will pay that bill separate from your tax assessment. If you don't pay for 2 years, there's a mechanism in the law where they send it to the county, and the county applies it to your property, and they collect it through your tax assessment. There is a lien on your property for the amount. So when that lien does not get applied until the city goes to bond. So if you go through the whole construction process and you pay it off, there will never be a lien on your property. The lien happens when the city goes and gets the bond and borrows the money. Your property gets a lien because it's the guarantee. The interesting thing about an LID is the city has no liability. Your property does, because it's the collateral. Does that make sense? That's how you get those types of 2% interest rates and things like that for 30 years. That's the reason why. So let's answer the question. Now that you understand that, you sell your house or you pay off your house and there's this remaining amount due, this lien on your property. Let's say you go to sell it. It ends up being disclosed when they do the title search. It'll show as a lien. Your mortgage lender can decide if they're going to accept that lien remaining or not. You all know if you had a second mortgage, they're going to say, no, we're paying off the second mortgage because they're not going to let you assume it. You follow what I'm saying? So a lot of mortgage lenders are going to want to pay that off and roll it into the mortgage of the buyer. Because what happens in default, meaning if you don't make a payment, the LID bond gets paid before the mortgage lender. That's the reason they don't want it. So it gets paid in front. So they're going to want to pay it off. Other mortgage lenders, so that gets all disclosed to the buyer. So now imagine you're the buyer and you want this home, and then this all comes up. So it obviously becomes a point of negotiation. You need to know that. It will become a point of negotiation. I have personally not ever seen it stop the sale of a home. I have seen sellers that get really nervous and they split the cost or they do things like that so it gets paid off as part of the closing. And so the buyer agrees to pay half and the seller. The buyers that I have seen that said, yeah, it's there. You can take it or leave it, pay it off yourself or roll it in your mortgage and stand firm. I've never seen the buyer that wants the home not buy it over that amount. So but I do feel like in fairness, I need to tell you that the buyer will say to you right to your face, I don't want that. I shouldn't have to pay for that. I didn't know about that. I don't care about it. You just need to be prepared. Just understand they're buying a home, and I have not ever seen it blow the deal up. The flip side is you will have people that'll say, oh, I'm so glad that's there. I was counting on it. My realtor told me it was there. So you will get the same opposite reaction at times depending on who the buyer is.
This fee that you're talking about, is that initial cost fee, that $4,000, or that is if you don't pay it in full when you first start and you do it in payments, and then something happens to the house, that $4,000 is part of the lien, you get paid off it somehow.
Yep, and by law, the city does have to record that lien by law for the benefit of the bondholder. It will show that it's an improvement, and it will show the lien as being the city, just so you're aware. Because the city becomes kind of like the connection point between the bank and you as the property owners. That's kind of their role, and so everything flows through them. So that's kind of their responsibility. And then every year when your payments come in, they have to notify the county that that amount is dropped. So the amount that is recorded as the lien actually does get adjusted every year. So they will take payments. Once a year, they'll tell the county, hey, we got these payments, adjust all these liens to this amount, and oh, by the way, these 5 or 6 people paid their off, and so that's gone, and so that does get cleared. So you just need to be aware that sometimes, and he'll vouch for this, they report stuff to the county that they have to record on the properties. It doesn't mean it happens that day. Sometimes it happens 3 months later or whatever, but you just need to be aware. I've had people come into Ammon, pay it off, wait 3 months and call the county, and they'll say the lien's still there. And we have to tell them, yeah, but ask the county to look, and they'll show that they have it. They just haven't recorded it on the property yet.
Hey, Bruce, it might be beneficial for them to understand that LID, which stands for Local Improvement District, is traditionally used for water systems, street lights, other improvements to areas. And the process of becoming first lien on any property would be the same for anything that is a local improvement district. The really cool thing that the city of Ammon figured out how to do is how to use the local improvement district laws to build fiber infrastructure. But all of the rules and regulations dealing with local improvement districts, whether it be a water system or street lights or whatever, have to apply to this. And so in a traditional local improvement district, if it's financed, it becomes first position on the lien or the note ahead of the mortgage. But it would be that way if you were part of a water or sewer system that was also a lid. And Bruce can correct me if I'm wrong, but that might help you understand this better, that the vehicle that they're using to build this fiber isn't a new vehicle. It's just not been used frequently to build fiber. It's actually a really unique implementation of the law.
So Bruce, really quick, I'm going to go out for a reconnect grant. And what a reconnect grant is a USDA grant, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And we can get up to 23 million bucks. Let's say I got 23 million. How would, let's say instead of doing the lid, I just tell everyone, hey, I found a grant to pay everything. Could that be another alternative? So let's say we went out for lid, it's all done and rock and roll, and I still went out and got that reconnect grant. Could I pay back those people that paid that first LID with that grant?
If construction is in progress, I would say yes. It depends on where we're at in construction, depends on a lot of things. I'm sure you all understand that. If you get a grant and you folks haven't closed, so nobody's paid any money, then absolutely you can apply the grant to that process. If the LID is closed, then it's a different question, because the question becomes, does the city want to go pay off your LIDs on your behalf and things like that? It's just a different process to apply the money. So, and obviously you're not going to get the grant if the LID is closed. It gets there isn't really a funding mechanism that allows you to go back and pay it in arrears. But I'm sure you folks recognize that. But I do think that it does touch on something that the city may have to deal with in the future, which is they could get a grant that makes one of the future neighborhoods a little bit less or something like that. And I don't have any great answer for that. I think that we're going to see the laws and the grant processes shift and some unique things start to flow out of them for these questions. But right now, these things have not been contemplated clearly. The grant process are really focused on private ownership, not on public ownership. So the grants that are out there now, I think I told you there's additional points for open access. There's additional points if you're a government entity or a nonprofit because you're prevented from charging profit. So there is a shift in the federal funding that's starting to say, we recognize that in the absence of public utility type of operation, the prices are going to remain higher for our country than they are in other countries. And we will not be competitive. We are a wealthy country, but we pay more for internet than a lot of other countries. And as we move to a more digital economy, it's going to be very challenging. Clearly, the people that have invested and built infrastructure are trying to protect that.
And I want you guys to know, when we do another meeting, we'll do it in a bigger venue. I apologize for it being a smaller venue. Last time we had only 8 people show up. So I'm excited and really hopeful that y'all came out to understand and want to know what's going on, and we're right there. So when we do the open public meeting LID format, it'll be probably at the Elks Club.
Hey, Bruce. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just had one last question I was thinking about. For like other utilities and all that, if there is some catastrophe, house fire, things like that, that burn up everything, is obviously that's going to be held under, will that be held under like insurance, things like that, or is the city gonna help us with that? Like how will that work if something like that were to happen?
The amount of damage that would occur to your fiber stuff is really the electronics and probably some of that. So the cost, let me give you some perspective. The fiber that runs through your yard costs $40 to $80. The piece of electronics that sits in your home is about $300. The largest cost of this whole thing is the labor to install all the conduit underground. I mean, it's by far over half just labor, just that. The materials are actually pretty expensive, and as long as that conduit underground isn't all broken up, it's pretty cheap to pull the fiber out and shove it in. Fiber's actually turned out to be extremely cheap today.
Okay.
If one property is takes 20 feet to get to the house, another property takes 50 feet, is it going to be the same price?
Same price. By law. So Quinn mentioned LIDs are outlined in the law, utility, and so basically what the judicial confirmation, the reason the city of Ammon and the city of Mountain Home went to judicial confirmation is because the LID law doesn't specifically say you can use it to build a fiber system. It says that you can use it to build a utility water system or a sewer system. So this is a traditional mechanism. It also says you can do a public pool. It says you can do sidewalks through a whole neighborhood. It says you can do street lights. So those are the types of applications. So they got permission to build a fiber system. But when you say you're going to build it like you're going to build sewer and water system, which is what they said, by law, everybody pays the same.
It's the same as your water fee, your wastewater fee. So I think your water fee is $24.50, and it's $4,800 for your wastewater hookup fee.
So the truth is, wastewater hookup fee at $4,800. I'm just going to point this out to you. Fiber is stinking cheap. I mean, if you think about what it costs these guys to build 1 mile of road, I'm dead serious. If you wanted to start to build the kind of, like you look at the number of feet of fiber you're going to put in and turn that into road, multiply it by 100 or 1,000. So I know it sounds like a lot of money because you are going to spend millions to do this, but it will increase the value of every property in the city, and it is going to become more and more significant.
It's going to be an asset on the city books too.
Yep. And for you guys selling your homes. And I mean, the reality is it just is the mechanism that you're going to have to be successful in society, because you won't be able to engage. You're not going to be able to do banking. You're not going to be able to buy the stuff. More and more health's going to go there. I mean, just think about it. When you wanted to get, if you decided that you wanted to get your COVID vaccine, how'd you do it? How'd you find out about it? How'd you schedule it? What would you do if you didn't have it? What did those people do in those areas I described to you? How did they get their appointments? So, I mean, I'm just pointing out to you the reality some people face and how we kind of take some things for granted, and why we need to get to a point where this is a utility and everybody gets it. It needs to be an essential, basic thing that is automatically in any home you buy and affordable.
Another question?
I just have one. It might be fairly trivial, but at any point in time during this transition, will the internet be off? Like when I go say I go from Zito to Sumo or QuickNet, at any point in time during that transition, will I be without internet until you're hooked up? Or?
Well, you're going to take your internal router and unplug it from one device and plug it into the city-provided equipment.
And that's it? That'll be the only
thing? And then your device will ask us for IP addressing.
Right.
We hand you IP addressing, and you're on the internet.
Oh, so we're talking.
But your Zito router might be crappy because it's Zito.
Yeah, and most cable system routers are.
Oh, that's the cable system, Zito.
Yeah, I think Zito's cable. So most cable system routers don't play correctly on this type of system. And the reason is that the public-facing side of that is a coax connection, and that coax connection then has a router piece of it. The routers that are required for this are going to be Ethernet in and Ethernet out. And so it's likely that your cable modem that you have now is outputting to a nicer router that's Ethernet in and Ethernet out. Every use case is going to be a little bit different. One other thing that I was going to mention, a little bit ago, they were talking about internet in other countries. I can give you some perspective because my company's over 20 years old. We started out in the cloud space, internet web hosting, Boise-based company. And we have clients in every time zone of the world almost, because of that side of our business. And we actually still get opportunity to look at and troubleshoot networks that are in Europe and other places. I can tell you that the Ammon network is milestones ahead of what you find for free internet in Europe and country-owned internet and other things. Just because it's free doesn't make it good, but affordable. And when I look at Ammon and Mountain Home's economic model versus other cities that we participate in, and I think Sumo would agree, the pricing to the end users half in round numbers. Having the operation and maintenance costs being handled directly by the city instead of some third party saves you so much money. In an adjoining city, just to talk very vaguely, $2 out of $3 we connect go to a management company that's not the city, that the consumer has to pay. So when we look at the pricing that's up here, people say, okay, so how can somebody provide a gigabit of internet for $8? That's not even my company, but I'll use them as a data point. The reality of it is, all of the other pieces to support the infrastructure and the backhaul and the operation and maintenance and rolling a truck because a fiber's cut and all of that gets stripped out. And so what's left is the services piece of it. And that services piece of it, because it's not being provided by the same monopoly that's providing the transport, goes from a scarcity model, which is a term that Bruce's team developed, a scarcity economic model, to as much as you want. Okay? When the transport doesn't matter, then the thing that determines the amount of internet that is consumed is the suite of devices in the house. Because the road doesn't matter. You can drive 200 miles an hour on that road or whatever.
For us, the speed doesn't matter either. You're going to download a movie in
right
1 minute on Comcast, or you're going to download it in seconds on us.
Yeah.
And you're still going to download it, so just get it to you faster.
And from an engineering standpoint, I'd rather see the traffic load delivered and released so that somebody else can use it than to intentionally slow it down over transport so that data transfer spread over time, because then the packets stack like this and not stack like this. It lowers my effective cost per megabit to provide my customer service, and it allows those megabits to be purer because we are delivering it now as fast as it will go and not encumbering it just because we can.
This, all of these we're looking at competition with like Zito and things. 5G is coming online pretty fast, and then that's going to also offer internet service. How is that going to compare in costs and efficiency to?
Can I take that one, Bruce? Can I take the answer to that question?
Yep.
The biggest problem the neat thing about 5G, let's talk about the neat thing. It follows wherever you have coverage. The not neat thing about it is you give them the right to traffic groom it at their discretion. You have a limited amount of transfer contractually, even though they say unlimited, doesn't mean unlimited. Okay? And this, a typical 5G connection best case, in this market, I think you'd see 100 to 200 megabit that's metered. You go over it, they'll throttle it back, and you're no different than a cable company. It is captive transport, monopolistic transport, that contractually they can do whatever they want with the packet. If they don't like that you watch a lot of Netflix across that 5G, they type on the keyboard, turn the volume knob down, and that's all you get.
Kids will be very happy with fiber and the fast gameplay too.
Right. Yeah. But for most people, I think 100 megabytes per second is more than they're ever going to use. I mean, that's
Well,
that's a lot. That's fast.
if it's a real 100, sure.
If it's a real 100,
Yeah, and especially if it's 100 symmetrical. Because if we talk about the TCP protocol, which is handshaking, you choke the upload, and you're naturally choking the download. That's why symmetrical bandwidth is so important, right? And especially as people use Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive or the Apple Cloud or whatever, and they're syncing files up and down, they may be choking their upload and not being able to get their checksum packet back on their TCP packet without knowing that they're even doing it because their computer's doing operations in the background. Your cable company that charges you likely based upon transfer, they count both the upload and the download packets against that quota, and your 5G connection is going to do the same thing.
The big thing to think about is when you're talking about 5G, it's a shared connection. It's not like the private connection you'll be getting with the fiber line. So it's going to be dependent on the traffic that is running off of that tower. So if there's a lot of people sitting at night running their 5G service, watching Netflix, all that, it is going to slow down.
And technically, you're not going to get it for $10.
Yeah.
There's a big thing you got to remember is that the greatest impact on bandwidth is the frequency spectrum you're in.
Yes.
So when they start talking about, they're saying that they're going to deliver 1 gig on 5G, that's fixed 5G. That's not your cell phone.
Right.
Right.
And that's in a different frequency spectrum.
Right.
And that's fixed radios, line of sight.
Right.
And if you do the math, you're going to end up with towers in your neighborhoods every 600 feet to cover.
And then when you walk inside the house, you lose your signal.
Yeah. So you just need to understand there's a difference between mobile 5G and the 5G when they're talking about you being able to get 1 gig at your house. Those are two different products. They're not telling you that, but they are.
Right. And the FCC spectrum for that they put up for auction, because we lost our 365 gigahertz license because of it, is in the 365 gigahertz range.
So they're going to run. They'll run fiber every 600 feet, but Verizon will do it and they'll own it, and it won't go to your homes. And if they're in your neighborhoods within that distance of your home, wouldn't you rather just hook up your home?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my answer. That's the reason they came into all these cities and they overrode. They got the FCC to rob the cities of the ability to block them from going on their poles. Because that's what they did in some cities.
Technically speaking, they're using fiber to those antennas.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to be going around the neighborhood trying to sell this to folks. I kind of signed up for that, and that's what I want to be able to give them that answer, because that seemed like the most likely near future thing that's going to be as good or better than what this is the 5G thing.
Yeah, but I would point out to you, how many of you have 5G now? Does it change your world?
I don't think I've gotten it here in the city.
I mean, my phone says 5G. My phone says 5G on it. So my point is, you went from 3G to 4G, and yeah, it was great. You liked it. The same thing's going to happen here, but you're not going to get 1 gig at your home through this. And they're going to throttle it, and they're going to meter it, and they're going to charge you. And when you use over a certain amount, they're going to slow it down. That's the way it's going to work.
So the same line going in when we selling this to my neighbors. What's my counter argument for Elon and his Starlink?
Yeah. I've tested Starlink.
What's that?
I've tested Starlink. It's really good for what it is. Real world testing, we got 250 megabit down and about 50 megabit up. Ping time to Google about 35 milliseconds. Elon puts his traffic through a NAT engine. He publicly states that. It's microwave. The cool thing about microwave is it travels at the speed of light. It's a generated wave. It's no different than a wave that a laser creates. The downside is it's near Earth orbit satellite, but it's still satellite. Okay, so like in my fiber network, my internet core is in an adjacent city to Ammon. Okay, round trip latency is less than a millisecond. Okay, and then once it hits my core, it's on the backbone. We have our own autonomous system number. We run it's on the backbone. Okay.
Plus it's $100. Plus they have absolutely no customer service.
Well, you got the same problem too, because the satellites are shared. Even if you look at what Elon Musk has, he'll tell you it's not for any populated areas. He said himself it's not for that, and they will never be able to get it. But if you get a certain amount of density, there's a couple things you need to know. They're locking the base antennas to a census tract, right? So if you go out of that, it doesn't work. Exactly. Okay. But it works within that area, and they're only selling a certain number. So once you get out of that number, it's not going to work. So my point is this. You guys are going to be successful because of scale. We already told you the best thing you could do is all take it. So Elon Musk is, for the early comers, you might be fine. Yeah. But it's
additionally, to have the way that Elon has his satellite network set up, to have uninterrupted signaling, you have to have greater than 110 degrees, no trees, no houses, no mountains. If it's your only choice, it's really good. Is it comparable to this? No, this is half the money. Even that.
The hookup fee, that's the only problem. Okay. I've talked to a couple of my neighbors already, and that's what they're
right, but Elon makes you buy the equipment up front at $500-600, right? Yep. You look at the cost base analysis of $600 divided by 12 months, 24 months. You might as well have fiber.
Well, what you need to do is get a couple of these people that are hooked up, have them start talking to people about how awesome it is. That'll sell them.
The best thing that everybody needs to understand is this is an investment in your community. The money isn't going out of your community. It's going into your home. It's an investment in your home. If you're honest with yourself, you're spending money every month. You're going to reduce that monthly bill. That's how you get the money back, and your property value is going to go up.
And the lid has to run financially neutral. Elon wouldn't do Starlink if it didn't eventually make him money, even though it's heavily subsidized up front by the government and his bankroll, right?
Yeah, it's pushing Starlink, so that's why.
Yeah.
Is there any health factors with these technologies that would be a concern? I remember when we first started using cell phones, they were telling us not to.
Wi-Fi will kill you eventually.
It's infrared. It's not in the visible spectrum. The powers that they use now, so when they first started, the lasers were significantly different than they are now. When they first started, you had to be really, really careful because it was actually infrared radiation, do things to your eyes, do a lot of things. The actual optics the city uses now are so low power that it has none of those consequences.
You really shouldn't be pointing it in your eyeball anyways.
You shouldn't point it in your eye. I'm going to point that out. I'm going to say he's exactly right. But I am going to tell you they have proven the current ones don't do anything to your eyes. But if I were you, I would not look right in it and go, I wonder if it's working. Because you won't see it.
Yeah, the other thing is
it'll hurt. It'll see
the
it.
distribution inside your house after it gets to your house is the same risk factor as you have now, which would be the same risk factor as your microwave oven that runs on 2.4 gigahertz.
But you don't have the fire hazards that go along with it because it's not
right.
electrical. So.
Right.
You have a question back there, sir?
Yeah, so one for you and one for you guys. Talking about the rental, turning things off, made me think a few years down the road, there's a recommended hardware upgrade. Is that covered by our monthly utility fee, or is that an additional cost?
So you're basically buying the device that's in your home. I think from our perspective, you would have to buy it if you want the upgrade. If it's a necessary one that's done system-wide, I think it would be just like a water system. The city would reach out to everybody and say, hey guys, it appears that everybody'd like this system. They would talk about, this is what we have in reserve. Do you guys want to bond for an overall improvement that might cost $10 million, and we'll bump your rates by $1 or $2 a month and pay the bond back. Or it's going to work just like a water or sewer system. And so I would say any of those things are going to have a public notice. You're going to have a chance to come in and see. See, that's part of what you need to understand. When the rate gets set, they are required to do an analysis. They call them engineering rate studies, right? That's because they have to forecast what's it going to cost us to run 10 years, what do we need to charge a month to make sure we get that covered, what's a reasonable reserve, what do we need to have in the bank to change out aging equipment, and then they'll publish that. And so if they adjust their rates, they have to have a public hearing. You guys all know that, right? So you get to come in and say, why are you raising the rate? And they have to explain it to you. That's the difference between private and public.
But really, the next step up is 10 gig. And if you can afford the 10 gig, then you can afford the 10 gig.
Yeah, so what I would tell you is right now, if you wanted 10 gig, the way it would work in Hammond is we would say, okay, you're plugged into a 1 gig port over here in a city structure, right? That's where you're being fed out of. So we have to bump that to 10 gig. We have 10 gig ports there, and we know how much they cost. So you need to pay for that port, and then you need to buy a device in your home that'll go 10 gig, which is going to cost you $400, and then we're going to charge you for that port, which is going to be a couple $100 over here. So bottom line, you're probably going to pay $600 to get bumped to 10 gig. Then our operational costs really don't change much, do they? Because you just paid for it. We're really just maintaining the fiber in the road.
And then you have to buy a Wi-Fi router, which will then bring it back down to a gig.
Yeah. But you see the difference there is that it's kind of a different thing, because when you do that with another private provider, they're going to say, well, they're going to raise your price this much a month, and that never stops. For the city, their objective is, hey, you know, our cost of maintenance and operation, because it's a cable buried in the ground and we didn't change anything there, we don't care. So that's a key part of the difference there for everybody to understand.
And Mike, you mentioned today you had your first pilot residential connection. So one, why wasn't it me? And two, are they going to providing sort of testimonial to the community to kind of win more people over on its?
Yeah, so that's a big piece of it there. They're going to be fiber champions, so they'll be able to share their stories. We do plan on getting some videos of running speed tests on their network and getting their own testimonial to get out there to the public. So, and why it wasn't your house?
Tomorrow when I hook up mine, I'll show her.
Really quick too is we were given about $3.2 million of ARPA funding. The council decided that 1.5 should go to the broadband, and then 1.5 or change should go to a new well. What we're doing right now too is the cool thing I think about this, the first lid doesn't have to pay for the upfront cost of a new vac truck, the bore rig, the other the smaller bore rig for the homes. What else have we purchased?
We got the real trailer.
The real trailer, all the extra infrastructure actually that's gone into the ground right now.
Yeah.
So your lid will actually pay for just your area, which is awesome. Now your lid will pay if it's Silverstone. It'll all four of those things will all still pay for the fiber hut at Parks and Rec. We need to put a fiber hut at Parks and Rec. But all the other places, we already have huts there ready to rock and roll. So you don't have to pay for those huts or the infrastructure in the ground. So hopefully, in a perfect world, your first lid fee will be $3,500 or less. Or less. That's what I'm hoping.
He's the boss. I'm just a consultant. I used to sweat bullets over these projects, I gotta tell you.
What was that, sir?
Is there anybody around town that's installing the Ethernet in your house or community?
For the city?
Right.
Or
Yeah,
just
so
a
the city is going to be a big project, and we will be going out to the houses to install it. So the city is either going to get contractors for their first LID, or do a combination of contractors and city workers to do the installs at the homes.
I think he's asking if he wants his house upgraded, so electricians and stuff.
Oh.
Or the inside.
Like I have no Ethernet. It comes in on cable now. I said cable doesn't play well. And he's talking about downtime between the switches. So you have to have that Ethernet in your house before you switch over.
So is there somebody here in Mountain Home that'll run some Ethernet cabling for them?
There are going to be some local companies, and I'll work with Bruce to get some better information on different companies that will actually do those installs in the homes.
There's a new IT company here in town. They'd probably they
Ether-
do the IT company in town right across the street from Albertsons. They'll do all that.
Yeah. Additionally, Ethernet's covered in the National Electrical Code, so any licensed electrician will be familiar with the technology also.
You can technically buy a device called a MoCA that will actually turn Ethernet over your coax, and that is a gigabit speed. So you can actually reuse some of your in-house coax stuff.
Yeah, we actually used the telephone line for the pilot home to get it connected today. So
It was Cat 5e though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 6?
Is that, is that the lowest, the 5 cat, or can you go 7? Or?
Cat 6 right now is the kind of the leading
The
standard.
standard for this.
Cat 6 is. Cat 5e functions pretty much the same. Cat 6 is kind of the next gen, and I think you can go a few more feet. Cat 5e is recommended 300-foot runs between pieces of equipment to get 1 gig. You know, if you do it right, it'll actually go further, but 300 foot's the standard.
And there's also the majority of homes nowadays and things that you run in your house are going to run off wireless. So there's also options that we can work with you as a homeowner as well to help you get the correct wireless devices set up that will save you that additional cost of having to run cabling, new cabling throughout your house, because we could just place a wireless router near the modem that would send a signal out through your whole house.
But
Yeah.
it's, the way it looks like where you're gonna install it, right, it's gonna be tough to get. All the cable comes into the back of the house, into the garage. I don't think they want the fiber sitting out there.
Right, well, the equipment will all be inside, and when we do get ready to connect your home, we'll come out to do a site survey to figure out where the best location is to come into your home to place that equipment for you.
Okay.
And I think David Burr with Sumo, for the first couple of Sumo customers, has got a Wi-Fi router that he rents, and I think he's willing to waive it for the first couple customers. So
Yeah, get people going on some fast Wi-Fi, get testimonials out of it.
normally, you know, you guys own your own Wi-Fi router. We're agnostic. The city's agnostic to that. We don't care. But you know, and I'm going to guess, Dave, since you're doing that, that's a Wi-Fi router you can help them and log into.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of the perk, is like if you really feel like I don't want to manage my Wi-Fi. So
Normally we do a free install, but I have to figure that out because this is a new area for us.
I would just throw one recommendation out there though. You guys start pushing this from the city side. Throw a mailer in with the utility bill that tells people what kind of router, maybe even specific models of router to
I was
tie
going
into
to say,
this type of
can
thing.
you put it on the portal?
We on our side, I think we both have it on our websites that have our recommendations as well.
And there's also
Maybe just put it on the
recommendations
generic
website, but I could put some stuff
portal so that it's not tied specifically to any of the vendors, just saying this is what we recommend for the system.
So Michael has put that on the city site of 3 recommended routers. Like I said, we're agnostic of what router you pick, but from Bruce's perspective, he said, hey, here's 3, let them pick.
Is that to play optimally with the fiber?
So I'd recommend you look at the size of your home and how much area you want to cover, right? That's really the key difference in them. We truthfully are very, very agnostic. I think, you know, like he says, they're on their website, Ammon has it on theirs. We can try and move it to the front so it's easier to find, easier to see. In Ammon, there are just links to Amazon and other locations where you can just buy them. We don't really care. Man, you can spend up to $600 on a Wi-Fi router, and they're pretty cool. I just don't know how many of you, I mean, like they've got new ones now that have a screen on the front of them, and it'll tell you every device that's connected, and it'll give you a graph showing what it's doing in terms of speeds right at live. So, I mean, there's pretty fancy ones out there.
And those are on the frequently asked questions tab when you go to the webpage if you are looking at them. But I will try to post, put a post out on the Facebook page. If you guys follow the City of Mount Home Fiber Optics Facebook page, I'll put a post out there that shows the different routers and what's recommended according to the size of your home.
Talk to your councilman and councilwomen. If you want it, you gotta get to them and tell them this is something you're interested in.
Okay.
Okay? We appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you so much.
So I'm Tom, I've been emailing